to episode number 28 of Red River Podcast.
Yes.
So today we are back at the Parker compound in an undisclosed area.
Surrounded by toys.
Surrounded by toys,
Yes.
definitely, as usual. And today we have Chris Tzompanakis. Tzompanakis.
Close.
Nah, not really. I wasn't really close at all.
I was being nice.
But yeah, so we have Chris from the band Skycamefalling, One Day Savior too. What else have you been doing? What was the last band? Wasn't it like Divider?
Yeah, Divider.
Divider. Okay, so I figured, like I was telling you before, you guys are playing February 23rd, like a big fucking Skycamefalling reunion, and I figured it'd be a lot of fun to have you in, just chat with us and talk all the nonsense that we like to talk about. So, welcome.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming out. Has Parker always liked toys?
Parker spent a lot of time in the van watching movies.
That's true.
So there wasn't a lot of room for toys. But I think when we first met, Parker had a fake arm that when we used to hang out of his window of his house at his parents' house, and we used to pick him up, and then the fake arm moved from hanging out of his window to hanging out of the bass drum when we played shows.
That's awesome.
That's very true.
Yeah.
What was the fake arm about?
I don't even know. I don't even know where the fuck
Is
I
it
got
like
that.
a Def Leppard homage?
Maybe. I don't even remember where I got that from.
Is that just in case you lost it in a car crash? You
Maybe.
have an extra a backup arm?
You never know.
But I actually don't think I ever, maybe once, was inside your house. I don't ever think I went inside your house.
Chris was afraid of my dad. So he never made it up the flight of stairs. 'Cause
Right,
my
yeah,
father always used to greet him at the door like, who the fuck is this fucking asshole?
So, being a friend with Parker meant you were also a part of his taxi service.
Yes.
So that was a big deal. You used to just stop in front, beep the horn, he'd come out.
And I come running out.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a hangout house?
No.
Because some people have hangout houses.
Absolutely.
Like for me,
Yeah.
like my mom was tolerant of everything as long as we did it in the house. You know, like you could have
where you are.
You could have like orgies, you could do drugs. Like we used to get fucked up on everything and tell her that we were drinking because she's like, oh, drinking's okay. But it was definitely not drinking. So,
Right.
you know, and so we would always hang out there and it was fucking chaos. So shout out to my mom who's probably
Yes.
drunk right now, keeping it real.
Every crew needs one mom like that.
Every crew, yeah, you
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
Because, like, whenever you can hang out at Parker's house, you just go to, like, Anna's house.
Exactly.
And, like, Sam's there, and, like, no one questions anything. I remember I used to, like, bang chicks, and, like my mom would knock on the door. And if I was, like, having sex with a girl, I'd be like, I'm busy. And she'd be like, all right, no problem. She'd, like, go away. So, like, that's, you know, I never want kids because kids are evil and they take a lot of work. So, but if I was ever a parent, that's the way. I would be very negligent. So completely. That's how I would raise my kids.
I feel you.
You know?
I do my best.
I really wanted to talk about something in the beginning because I know I'm pretty passionate about it, and I got Misfits tickets. And that seems to
Yes.
be like it's almost like Trump versus Hillary.
It's two camps.
You know, it's like, how could you spend that much for a punk show to like, I can't believe I'm actually going to go see the Misfits. So Chris, what side of the fence are you on?
I'm not even, I'm on neither side, to be totally honest with you. I was never really a big Misfits fan. And I've always kind of thought, especially as not really being into that genre of music until I got older.
Meaning what, like just punk pop? Like,
Yeah, I was never really into punk. Like I was into like hardcore, but I came in kind of late into the hardcore scene. So a lot of the bands that had come before the music that I started to get into were the bands on Long Island that, I mean, it's somewhat blasphemous to say, you know, to a degree, but a lot of the really early hardcore bands that a lot of people that were influenced by, obviously the bands that I was listening to, they would all cite their influences, but I tried to get into that stuff outside of like Minor Threat. There was probably very few of those bands that I was really into. And I always kind of liked the ones that were on the outside at the time that weren't cool to like. Like I liked Into Another, and you know I liked more of the post-hardcore sound, like the bands that came after the bands that were their influential bands. So for me, I grew up.
What if Into Another charge $300 for a ticket.
So it's just strange to me because it's one of those things where I've always looked at Glenn Danzig as kind of a joke. Like nowadays, like just his antics. To me, as much of a Morrissey fan as I am, right? You accept the fact that you have to put those earplugs in when he speaks.
Yes.
Great lead-in, because if the Smiths were united, that's like we would be spending.
Yeah, then exactly.
They're one of my favorite bands ever. The Queen is Dead, like, is one of the best.
I cough up the dough for that. You know why? Because like, it's so unique, and it's not going to happen again. You know that they're going to play other shows after this.
I don't know.
You know it.
I don't know.
Oh, they're going to make a ton of dough. They're going to put differences aside, play some more shows. But
I
for
hope
me,
not.
I wasn't really crazy about, and they're my favorite band of all time. But you got the Jailhouse one.
Well, the Jailhouse tat I covered.
It's covered up.
I actually got a Jailhouse Misfits tattoo. I wanted to be at the venue and get on the mic and be like, yo, which one of you fucking 18,000 cocksuckers in here has a Jailhouse Misfit tattoo? I guarantee you the answer is probably like maybe one other person, but I doubt
There's got to
it.
be one other.
Yeah, I mean, I covered over because it was fucking terrible. But shout out to Mike, Bank Robin Mike, who had 3 strikes in '98 when he did it for me, and he was sent up for life. So
Hope he's doing all right.
probably.
Probably
Maybe
not.
he's listening. You never know.
Yo, Wi-Fi.
But
You didn't want to do it.
when Danzig was doing a whole bunch of shows, I had tickets to see Danzig, and I don't remember what tour and what year it was, but it was the first time that Doyle was coming back, and the New York show and the Boston show, I believe, only they were going to play like a half-hour Misfit set. And word got out, went to the show, and it was electric, man. Everybody was singing every word. They see the whole, it was amazing. And then I saw him on the 30th anniversary tour doing Sam Hain, Misfit songs, Danzig songs, and Doyle was there. And it was right before Halloween. It's like it didn't get better than that. So now Jerry Only's back. Who gives a fuck? I hate Jerry Only. I always hated Jerry Only.
I see where you're going.
You know what I mean? So you got the bass player back, and I'm supposed to pay $150. Danzig singing makes the sound. That's it. Danzig wrote that good shit. His voice is what makes it different than other punk bands to me. So I seen it, I feel like. But that being said, if I had a whole bunch of scratch to throw away, I'd probably go, because the coolest part would be to hear an arena, because people sing those songs.
Yeah.
Like back, I mean, that's going to be crazy to hear that many people sing those fucking songs that loud.
So there was nothing about the Misfits that you ever liked, Chris? Like
There were songs, like I had friends that would listen to them and they'd be on, and I every now and again a song will come up and I'll be like, oh, I know that song, or it's usually somebody covering that song. Like I know the Lemonheads covered a Misfits song, so
yeah.
I think they covered Skulls.
Evan Dando.
Did they?
Evan Dando did it solo.
Oh, shit.
And I remember, like, I have the split where they did the split together.
Earth,
you know, obviously.
Earth Crisis did Earth AD.
Yep.
So like I know some of the songs and I can I'm familiar with them. It's just not really a band I've ever sat down and gone back to.
Gotcha.
It's just something where they kind of came out before. I'm actually more interested in their backgrounds as a band, like understanding like who all the members were and piecing that type of stuff together, because I think there's such a cool history of that band, especially as he got signed, and you know, like obviously Sam Hain and all of that. Like I remember having conversations with people about that. I think I'm more interested in that stuff than I am in the actual music that they played.
Well, when we get him on the podcast, we'll do a whole, breeze through the career.
What
and
appealed to
you
me
can
about them is, like, growing up as a metalhead primarily, they were heavy for me. They were dark with the songs, but so catchy. It was so much more melodic than a lot of other punk that was a little abrasive to me at the time, that that's what got me over.
The melodies were amazing.
And that Skull fucking is classic.
Melodies, as a songwriter, we were all in bands, the melodies were just the catchiest things. The lyrics about raping your fucking mom and fucking all that other shit, fucking.
You don't know that one?
No. That's a B-side, I think.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding. No.
His look,
I don't know,
was like,
man. Every episode we do peel back a bit
true.
of that Parker
That's true.
onion, and we have no.
You wait till you hear my number one for the top 5.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be Weird Al or some shit. we found out he's never seen Metallica. How is that even possible?
Really?
Yeah.
I've seen Metallica.
I know.
And
He doesn't even like Metallica.
I'm not really a fan. I went for Faith No More.
There you go.
Actually,
That was a
Okay.
great tour.
Oh,
I
yeah.
showed up for Faith No More, and then I had to sit through Metallica and Guns N' Roses with my friends before we could leave.
That was a
Oh,
great
poor you.
I remember going to see the Deftones play, and they opened up for Godsmack.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well, luckily they opened though, so you could fucking get the
Yeah.
hell out
Oh,
of
we
there.
left.
Yeah,
Like we
yeah.
were just like,
Beat
we
the
got to get the
rush.
fuck out of here. So, but yeah, the Misfits were fantastic to me, and I remember when Joey Ramone died, they threw a birthday party for him at the Roseland, and that's when Jerry only got those people back together. So it was like him, Marky Ramone, and Dez from Black Flag. And this was like 2000. I was like, you know what? Like, this is as close as it's going to get. Let's just go. I went with my friend Bob. We have our mutual Farley.
Oh, Bob Farley.
Yeah, it's like one of my best friends. So we went there, and I was just talking to him about the show, and this band called the Impotent Sea Snakes opened up. And I remember their logo because it was KISS minus the K. ISS, Impotent Sea Snakes. And
And get sued for that?
I don't know. So they start playing, and then the act is crazy. So it's very X-rated, and there's a girl doing a split while the band's playing, and then this guy sticks like a gun dildo inside of her. There's people with like saw me like, yo, this shit, it was the wildest shit. It was everything but Gigi Allen shitting on the floor. And when they played, this is all I remember. I don't remember the songs. I don't remember any of the songs. But everyone at the Roseland, like no one said anything, no one moved. We were just like you figure I was 22 and I've never seen anything like that at that point.
Wow.
I'm like thinking like people are getting fucked on stage right before, like I couldn't believe it. And then
But
later,
you don't remember any of the music if they're any good.
No, I just remember the ISS, and I remember like some girl getting fucked. She did a split and got fucked with a gun dildo.
That's the star of the show.
Or a jack
Ah.
thingy.
Not the band.
But later on, to realize that Jerry only was like such a like God thumper or Bible thumper, and it's just weird like that was like the opening act, and how it wasn't shut down. I don't know. That's a story I would love to get into. So.
Fuck that guy.
But going back, so the Smiths, like
his
let's say-
devil lock's growing from the back of his neck right now.
let's say the Smiths reunite, and they charge $300 a ticket. Are you down?
Yeah, I'd be down. I think I've paid probably like maybe $200 to go see Morrissey, so I don't think it's
Did
that
you?
far of a stretch. Yeah, I believe so.
I'd definitely cough that up for the Smiths.
Yeah.
No question.
When was the last
Even
time you saw
nosebleeds.
Morrissey?
I saw him at the Roxy. Maybe it was right around the release of You Were the Quarry.
Okay.
That was a show I remember.
That was, I think, the last record that I liked.
The next one was good. It had some moments, but I don't think he ever recaptured. I'd like another band that I really like the history of is like as the members have kind of moved in and out, like Boz and Gary and all those other members, like where he got into that like rockabilly phase for a little while, which I
Absolutely.
thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And like as people kind of moved in and out, and I think that the You Were the Quarry record, how long it took to write, and how I feel like that had all hits, like every song on that, even the B-sides are fantastic. Then the next record came out a couple years later, and it had 5 or 6 good songs, and the next one came out and had like one or two good songs.
I dipped after the one after You Were the Quarry.
I think that's the one with him. Is that Years of Refusal? The one where he's holding the baby, I think.
I
I
don't
believe so.
remember, but like I didn't like I liked You Were the Quarry, but then like after that I was like pretty much done, and I was never really a huge Morrissey fan. I liked a handful of songs, but the Smiths were just like far and beyond like anything. And I get it, like anytime we talk about them on like the podcast group, like my friends that
Very
like
heated.
yeah,
Ridiculous.
yo man, they fucking shit on them hard. Like for
You
real.
either like the Smiths or you fucking hate them.
My boy Nate like shitting on him and then posting Bell and Sebastian videos.
I know.
Like,
What the
what's
fuck was that?
Like ridiculous. Like what the fuck? Like
Come
that's like the
on
most
now.
ridiculous shit.
I actually
ever.
got into the Smiths after Morrissey. I heard Morrissey
Yeah.
first because I was of that age that MTV was around, so you
Okay.
got into that first, and then I like backtracked into him, which was interesting. The first Smith song I ever heard was a cover by the Tree People. So
What song?
they did Big Mouth Strikes Again,
Oh, great one.
jeez.
and
So
I
good.
was like, "Oh, this
And
is
the
a really cool
lyrics.
song."
The lyrics are like he's such
He's
a
one
great
of the best
lyricist.
lyricists ever.
Yeah.
Very much okay. where Glenn Danzig is very cartoonish with his violence and his like
it's an art to it.
Yeah, Morrissey is just like, almost like like Alkaline Trio later on. For me, I think they tapped into that. They tapped into like those like lyrics that are just fantastic.
He's just unique. You can't find another person that writes like that guy that has his voice. Can't do it.
I'm going to tell you how I got into the Smiths, and you're going to think I'm a piece of shit, but it's all right because a lot of years have gone by.
Is this in the Riverhead jail?
No, that was a different one. So
put a Morrissey tattoo on my other arm.
I used to, maybe I might have, been in some kind of business where I did certain things and people gave me money and I gave them certain things. Mm-hmm. So this person was, hooked on these things. And he had
Swedish Fish.
Yeah,
exactly.
He had CDs, and he would give me 4 CDs for a bag of Swedish Fish. I'm like, okay. So every time he wanted some Swedish Fish from me, I would go to his house and I would pick 4 CDs that I want, and I left him a bag of Swedish Fish. One of those CDs happens to be the Smiths' greatest hits. Mm-hmm. And I, whatever age I was, man, and I fucking got it, and it was amazing. Yeah. I was like hooked because I hated the Smiths. I was like young, and I'm like anything that wasn't Minor Threat or anything like that.
Right.
And then I heard that, and I was just like, I don't know. Girlfriend in a Coma was the one that really stuck out to me. It was just great, man. Can't say enough about it. So, yeah. But let's talk about Rick Jimenez, our former guest. Like Extinction AD, doing fucking awesome. Yeah. Right.
Yep.
They're doing they're playing Irving Plaza with.
Irving, they're doing with Municipal Waste and Exodus, and then the Long Island show, another past guest, Dan Lamelli's other band, Carcosa's opening, and then I'm psyched to see that crazy King of the Ring band, which is like dudes dressed as wrestlers playing wrestler songs, and Brian Marr said that he's seen them twice already, so if he says that it's good, it's got to be good, so,
Man, are you a wrestling fan?
No, not at all, actually.
I don't even think Chris could name like 3 wrestlers.
I can name old wrestlers, but I stopped watching wrestling
in 1990 for me.
Yeah, probably like right around when I discovered music. And I, later on, like after I started hanging out with people and I got to meet more people that I knew, and even Parker, I started to discover that there's this whole group of people that still are older and love wrestling. And I remember a couple of people coming up to me and being like, "Hey, do you like wrestling?" And I was like, when I was like 10. And they were like, "Oh, because we all get together and we go to this person's house to watch." And I was like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm not into that."
Dude, like those, like Rick and Dan Tur, like they have like legit like wrestling parties.
Dan Tur with his 28th mention.
Yeah, that's right. You wait to hear what my number 5 is, speaking of Dan Tur. And they have these legit wrestling parties with, like, they all dress up and, like, they come out to... No, I'm serious. Like, they come out to, like, fucking theme music and, like... Yeah, like, it's legit, man.
Yo, invite me to this.
Yeah.
I remember being like, it's fake, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because the kid Andrew that's playing second guitar for us, he got... I don't know if he was ever into wrestling, but he watches wrestling now because his 2 younger daughters watch it. Right. So they kind of suckered him in, so... That's pretty funny how...
more power to you. If you could find entertainment in anything, especially something as amazing as wrestling, to be honest with you. But, I mean, I just always find it fascinating. But, yeah, listen, more power to you. I was watching Flavor of Love last night, so
there you go.
I can't really
Dating
talk.
Naked.
Foofy.
Dating Naked's actually pretty good. I mentioned
I'll take your word for it.
But I think it's really cool. We were talking about, like, Rick's band. And like we got to get him back on, but like to be blessed. I don't know how they got on the Exodus show, but I feel like it's such a good thing for them because the Exodus is such a like a grandfathered in fucking thrash band, and that audience and then Municipal Waste is right in the middle. And then they get to see like the New Extinction AD band, and I feel like it's a nice cosign.
It's a great show for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I will be there.
Because Exodus is like the first thrash band, really. And you go back to all that stuff. Hammett came out of there and in the Bay Area, but and Municipal Waste is so good that they're not even. If they came out back in the day, in the heyday of thrash, they'd still be right up there.
Yeah.
It's not like they're just a revival band. You know what I mean? So it's a great lineup.
And then, speaking of Exodus, Gary being in Slayer. Are you a Slayer fan or not?
No.
Wow, perfect, cool. We're hitting. You mind if we talk for a minute there?
0 for 2.
So, Slayer's doing a going away tour, and I guess Gary's gonna have more time to play with Exodus, which I guess I don't know if that's good or bad for him, but
it's definitely a pay cut.
Yeah. I don't. Maybe not. I don't know.
Might not be. Yeah, the way that those friggin' guys deal with people,
I got to see who's in the band. He might be like the only original member, so he might have it like that.
So I think Chris is ready to say goodbye to Slayer anyway, right?
Honestly, I think maybe I've heard Slayer maybe like once or twice. I don't even know if I can name a song.
No.
So there was but there's nothing about it that makes you want to listen to it.
I was never really big into like metal. Like the early stuff that I heard was mostly like hair metal, and I liked like the ballads that every band had to have at that time period. And then
I will touch on that. I did get tickets. So I didn't get tickets. My wife got tickets yesterday for us to go see Tom Kiefer.
I don't even. Who was that? I saw
Singer
that.
of Cinderella.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
That's really
Yeah.
Supposedly his shows are
I heard
pretty good.
through once
Sounds
again
good.
another past guest, Neil Rubenstein, that his show is great. He goes, it's worth every penny. He goes, I had him at Emporium, I had him at Revolution. The guy does a great show. So $25 general admission. It's on
that venue is great.
Yeah.
A coworker of mine was just telling me they're going to see Great White and Slaughter this weekend.
Yo, sick.
Where?
Midwest,
Midwest.
which sounds like it's probably an outdoor fair. I don't know.
That's awesome.
State Fair.
Yeah, that's
There was a clip of Great White, and obviously not the bad one, but the one after, because it's just like the singer now. And I guess they were supposed to play at the end of some game. There was a stadium. And the crowd had the option to just stay after the game and watch Great White.
Right.
So there's footage on YouTube.
I think I've seen this shit.
And it's a pretty big stadium, and there's probably no joke, maybe 10 people in front of them.
Oh.
wow.
And
That hurts.
I'll tell you what, that band still played like there was 20,000 in there.
Did he do any call and response? Like,
Yeah,
how you people feeling tonight? I'm all right.
Yo,
Make out one guy's.
He did, and I think it's got something to do with
He's
just,
probably programmed to do that. Like,
I wonder if the beer
how
here
you
guys
doing,
stayed.
Milwaukee? Where are we?
man. But so growing up, what did you like? What got you into music?
So, I was actually talking about this today. I think that first, just watching MTV, that's how I got. I mean, my dad's records,
Then we're
obviously,
the
my
same age,
parents'
right?
records. Yeah, I was so 78.
Yep.
I was born. So my dad always had records around the house, and I always used to listen to them. So I first started listening to Sabbath and Santana and that stuff that my dad had on. But my mom was really into the Carpenters. So I was, and we had Beatles records, which they both agreed on. So I started listening to that when I was younger, just because I was obsessed with the record player, because of just that I could take out a record and put it on. And then when MTV came out, I started just a lot of these bands. There wasn't 120 Minutes yet, but I'd see bands like REM, and I remember loving that band. And I remember the song Orange Crush coming out and thinking it was about the soda, and because I was young, that I was like, oh, this is I guess about that. And again, Morrissey, I remember seeing the video for Every Day is Like Sunday, but I didn't have any context. I didn't know what a genre was. I didn't know, I remember seeing Cure videos and Depeche Mode videos, and then eventually that music kind of segued into Nirvana exploding, and that was probably my first real, wow, I really, something about that song spoke to me, and I was like,
it's the same.
This is different.
Isn't it funny, how Nirvana really was that band, regardless of how you feel about them now or how you look back, but there's something that happened, and that record came out, and it spoke, we're the same age, and
It seemed like the world changed overnight, the whole
Yeah.
music landscape.
and even bands that were older, like the Sonic Youths or Dinosaur Jr., they benefited from that.
Yeah, I hung on every word that. If the good thing about Kurt Cobain was during a lot of his interviews, he was often I don't know why you guys are not listening to these other bands, these bands that I like. So I would look for these bands. I would go and I'd find, like, if he named, that's how I found Dinosaur Jr. That's how I found Shonen Knife. That's how I found, like, L7. Like, there were so many bands that he was mentioning.
Pixies.
And that kind of led me down that rabbit hole of, like, writing to record labels and getting back, like, their catalogs, and then just reading all the descriptions and being like, oh, I'm just going to order this. And that's where I got really into, like, underground Seattle scene. And funny enough, my father owned a deli when I was growing up, and one of the kids that used to work there after school. So
what town did you grow up in?
I grew up in a small, like, Williston Park, right outside Mineola.
Okay.
So my father owned a deli not far away from our house, and after school I would go there, and I'd help clean up and help customers and whatever. And we had a kid that used to come after school who was older. I was maybe like, probably 13, 14, and he might have been 17, 18, and he would come and he'd clean up after class, and he was like, oh, I heard that you like music. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, what do you like? And Nirvana had broken, and I was like, I really like this band Nirvana. And he's like, come back tomorrow and I'll make you a tape. And he had Bleach, because he was into that band before they exploded. So I got a copy of Bleach, like, almost immediately, and I remember just being like, there's other music outside of the stuff that's being played on TV.
And he dubbed you a cassette?
And he dubbed me a copy of that.
That guy loved you.
And I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, there's just this whole genre, or this whole just community of musicians. And my father owned another business that around the corner was Mr. Cheapo's. So nice. I would always go over there, and I would, like, name bands that I wanted, and they would, like, look them up actually in a catalog at the time that was like a big distro catalog that they had, and they would order this stuff for me. So I would go there, and they'd call me like a week later and be like, hey, your tape showed up. And I'd be like, oh my God. And I'd run over there and spend all my money on that.
And there was nothing better. And listen, you posted that thing about CDs not being sold anymore at Best Buy, whatever, but part of me is sad, but the other part of me just knows that time goes on. Yeah. Regardless, like, you're we're going to be dead. Like, everything ends. It's just, that's the way it goes. Technology just moves on, and soon somebody will be mourning Spotify.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, it's like, man, remember when we just had it in our phone? Now it's fucking microchip.
Well, if it gets better than Spotify, bring it on, because that shit rules.
It's impossible.
I mean, I know you guys have touched on it before, but I feel like I'm less patient. That's, I think, the biggest problem I have is, like, when a band, I remember going to Tower Records, buying 9 Inch Nails Downward Spiral, and not liking it at first, on first listen. But I knew that I'd spent my $10 on this tape, and it was the only $10 I had, so I was going to stick with that record until I fell in love with it.
You fucking nailed it.
And now, even if it's a band that I like, and I'm not saying love, because if it's a band that I love, I really will spend the time to try to get to know it a little bit more. But if it's a band that I'm just sort of on the fence about, I'll listen to 1 or 2 songs. If they don't catch me right away, I just move right on.
That's the worst part. That is the worst part about it, but you nailed it on the head. Like, you go and you buy a fucking CD or a cassette, and you're like, shit, you know what? I can't believe, like, I only like one song. I'm going to listen to it like 30 times.
Yeah,
I fucking
true.
like it.
I never thought
and
of it that way.
it's not going to leave my car. There was only like 2 or 3 tapes that you kept in the car.
Right.
And, like, that's how I ended up liking Life Won't Wait by Rancid. Like, I fucking loved An Outcome of the Wolves, and then Life Won't Wait came out, which was completely fucking different. But one day I had it in my work car, and that's all I listened to, and it took me like months, but I'm like, all right, I think I get it now. That's out the window now.
I appreciate that fact of it. That makes a lot of sense. I never thought of it that way, but I guess obviously we're all lifelong music fans, but, like, having Spotify at the touch of a fingertip it's like dropping a coke head off at Pablo Escobar's house. Yeah. It's just like, it's like,
with, like, different piles.
I can't take it.
Yeah.
Anything. I love it.
Yeah.
It's constantly on at work. I love it.
But that is the thing. If it doesn't catch you in the first few songs, but even when I am listening, do you have Spotify?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think of it?
I like it. I mean, I think that I find it's it's kind of like cable TV at this point, right? It's like you have
Flipping
700 channels.
Yeah.
So it's like, but half the time I'm like, I don't know what to listen to. So I'm just consistently listening to the same stuff over and over. I've discovered a couple of bands from it, which I think is pretty cool, where it'll be like, oh, you know, like you've listened to this, so why don't you check out that? Like I do like that aspect of it, but I miss a lot of times where I find myself hopping around and not trying to listen to an album like full, like in its entirety, which is what I remember, like physically getting up to have to change the CD in the house or flip the record over or stuff like you put it on, you listen to it, you saw it all the way through. But then again, there weren't as many distractions. Like now it's like, you know, I'll put on a song or two and then, you know, I have a meeting or something will come up or whatever that is, that distraction. But back then, I just remember being able to just sit down and listen to records like in their entirety, just laying in bed with headphones in, like on.
You just put it on. That's it. What do you think the remedy for that is? Is there any?
That's still pretty much why I still buy records on vinyl that I like, that because I can actually do that and just put them on and listen to them and enjoy them. Robin, my fiance, and I actually, she bought the newest City in Color. And I remember her not liking it at first and letting me listen to it and being like, I don't really know if I like this. And we listened to it a couple more times. Then we saw him live, and I was like, I really like these songs work. But I hadn't done that in a really long time. Like, if I don't like the record, I just either, if I buy it, I just sell it. But if I listen to it on Spotify a couple of times, there's been so many records that I'm just like, had totally forgotten about. And I'm like, I have to go back to that because it just slips completely off your radar. And with how many things are consistently coming out, it's like a barrage of information.
Absolutely. And another thing too, it's like, most of us have Spotify on our phone. That's how we use it. Obviously you put it on TV and all that other stuff, but everything comes through your phone. It's like you get a text message. Oh, okay. Like you get Facebook, you get an email, you get a phone call. So it's like every fucking distraction, once you're looking and you're not like, oh my God, I have to rewind that song. Mm-hmm. Same thing with like movies though. You know, when I start watching a movie, I gotta throw my phone on the other side of the fucking room. Otherwise I see it pop up. I'm like, oh yeah, I was waiting for this. Like I'm waiting for like.
And you miss like 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
This is why I hate going to the movies nowadays. I find that people just can't put their phones away. Mm-hmm. It drives me bananas. I'm like, you're not that important. You can't go 2 hours without needing to see what is like going on. It drives me crazy. I tell people all the time, like I've gotten up, I've told people like you've got to turn your phone off because it's just it drives me mad to the point that I start focusing on that and not the movie that I'm actually watching. And I love going to the movies.
Me too. Mm-hmm. To this day, I love it. I have access, I have the Fire Stick, it may or may not be jailbroken, allegedly. But there's certain things that it'll never replace sitting in a fucking movie theater. And I'll gladly spend, well, not gladly, but I'll buy that $7 popcorn because, and
when in Rome.
When in fucking Rome. Yet it's always gone by the time the movie starts because there's like 18 coming attractions.
The same thing.
Yeah, I'm just like fucking sitting there.
I kind of like to go for the coming attractions though. I'm always like, oh.
I don't go if we miss the coming attractions. Like
really?
Wow. And that's beyond like a personal quirk. That's like probably like if you're my girlfriend, she's probably just like you're a moron. But if I miss the coming attractions, I'm bummed. I like it. I don't know why.
It seems so long now because when it used to be like 3.
Used to be 3.
Now it's like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And
they have the commercials before, like the local businesses.
Yeah.
Like
yes.
That stuff that goes on,
Dr.
or
Sizemore.
They try to make it interesting, so they do those like the trivia before, like the things that'll go.
What happened to "Let's Go Into the Lobby" song? Bring that back. So all the bands that you named are very melodic, so I'm just trying to like gauge, from the stuff that I know from Sky Came Falling, which vocally is very aggressive. When did that taste start forming?
So being in Williston Park, Mineola was just the next town over. So I had some friends, actually my friend Jen, who I grew up with, her older brother and sister used to go to the Angle, which was Hotel Leningrad, which was where they did like Artie Philly booked shows, and I believe Artie Shepherd was booking the shows there. So they started to get into bands, and they would like buy a record or two, and then we'd take it back and like she and I would listen to it, like Mind Over Matter, Neglect, stuff like that. But I think it was not until I started to go to shows where I realized that it wasn't necessarily the music, but it was more so what was either being said in between songs or what was written in the lyrics or what was just the community itself amongst like the Long Island hardcore bands that I was just more enamored with. Don't get me wrong, I love all of those bands, and I started to kind of get into it. And I remember listening to like VOD and all of those bands as they were, exploding. But it was more so just that sense of community that I really enjoyed. I liked the fact that people had, a difference of opinions, but people also weren't afraid to stand up on stage and say, how they felt about certain things, or, it's where I started to learn more about animal rights, and where I obviously learned about like straight edge and all of those various, things that were sort of a part of the community. It was more of a cultural thing for me than it was a musical thing, and the music kind of came along with it. But when I started to get into that genre, I started to dig a little bit deeper into the bands that were more, I guess at the time now it's kind of like that screamo genre, but then was just like, I don't even know what I would have called it, but bands like from the West Coast, like Indian Summer, and even the bands on Long Island, like Closure and Half Man, those were the bands that, like Scapegrace, like they introduced me a little bit to that scene, and then I dug a little bit.
They had that vibe, yeah.
Right, so just hearing those bands and then kind of taking that back. So to me, Sky Came Falling, when we formed, I kind of always wanted to sound like Half Man in those bands. To be totally honest with you, that's what I thought we sounded like until
Shout out to the Menken brothers.
Until like later, when people were like, no, like the metalcore thing became popular. I think Parker and I were talking recently. I don't think there's a band that all of us in the band could have agreed on when we were younger, besides maybe the Deftones. Like we all just came from different backgrounds musically.
Oh.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's probably the same for my band too. When I think about it, there's some common ground, but there's more not common ground. So you start going to the shows and you start seeing these like vocalists. Did you play an instrument ever, or was it always vocals?
Always vocals.
So when did you first grab that mic and start screaming?
So I was...
And how did you know you could do it?
I think I was 15 years old. I started a band with some friends that I was with, that I went to high school with, playing Nirvana covers. Pretty much that started it, right?
Start.
Like it was like, oh, we'll do this. And
because they were easy.
Right, and we used to play a couple of the heavier songs, like what was it? Was it Aneurysm? Was that the name? Right, yeah. Aneurysm. So we played a couple of those songs that were like the heavier ones that he would scream. And I would always try to scream, but it was always kind of like scratchy. And then one day it slipped into like this spot vocally that the next time I went to practice, I was like, I don't think I could do that again. Like, it's going to be gone. And still to this day, I still have like a freak out. Like, even recently practicing, like, it's going to be gone and I don't know how to get it back. Yeah.
I took vocal lessons from Melissa Cross, who does the Zen of Screaming.
Okay.
And, man, she would teach these people how to scream. So did you ever get any type of lessons, or is it just like all natural?
It's all natural. It just is there.
I think because you either have it or you don't, because I can't do that.
So yeah, it's just there. And I've always wanted to take lessons because I'm assuming I'm like destroying my vocal cords. I mean, I remember when we first started playing, I would like spit blood afterward and I couldn't talk for a couple of days. But
yeah,
as I got older, it, even after Sky Came Falling broke up the first time, when I was screaming again in Divider, it actually changed and got deeper and more formed, in my opinion. So it's always been just evolving, and I've just kind of always evolved with it. I guess I'm more of a slave to it than it is controlled by me, I guess, is kind of the thing.
Okay. And how did Sky Came Falling start?
So how'd you meet this guy? I started a band. So after the band that I was doing, once I discovered I could scream, then I knew a couple of kids from high school that were playing heavier music. So we were like, well, by that point we had discovered VOD because it was only a couple of leaps beyond that. So we started a band, and that's where I just started screaming exclusively. And then that band broke up, and then other members formed another band, which I eventually joined, called Abstain. And we played a show with Suspect 7 in Queens at a place called Sanctuaries. And we were connected by someone who used to run a radio station. It was Steve Friedlander. He used to run Hofstra Radio. He was
Crucial
really
Chaos, right?
No, it wasn't Crucial
No.
Chaos. It was I think he just did Hofstra Radio, and he connected us with them. He was like, I really like your demo, which sounded a lot like it was just a complete ripoff of VOD.
Okay.
And he was like, but you guys should check out this band Suspect 7. So I gave John, the guitar player of Sky Came Falling, a call, and we booked a show together at Sanctuaries. So, and Parker was there.
Yep.
Right? Yeah, we just talked about it the other day. So Parker was there. So Cameron and John were in Suspect 7. Parker was a friend. Our first bass player, Matt, was a friend of Cameron's. And then eventually when Suspect 7 broke up and Abstain broke up, we just kind of merged the two bands. We needed a drummer, so they knew Parker, and we needed a bass player, and Cameron had been in another band with Matt, so we brought Matt in. And I think I was a freshman in college when we started.
How long did it take for like the sound to evolve?
So Suspect 7, actually, we had just talked about this the other day. Suspect 7 actually had the last song they wrote became the first song Sky Came Falling had, which was Of Adornment and Disgust, the second song on the demo.
Yeah.
And then we wrote like 3 or 4 more songs, and we're like, well, the next logical thing to do is record a demo. So every band needs a demo. We wanted to play shows, and we knew that Jay May from Tripface recorded.
Oh, that's right. That's the story that you told
So,
me.
yeah, we called him up, and we were like, can you record our demo? And he was like, yeah. And we drove out east, and at the time, anything past Huntington was like out east. So we just drove into farm country for like what felt like 2 hours.
It might have been because like we left from your place and it felt like 2 hours.
Yeah. To me, it's like nothing.
It's out there. It's out there.
That was 4th of July weekend, I think, right? Didn't we record on 4th of July?
Might have been. I remember just like we did it all in like what, a day? 2 days?
No, 2 days we were there.
We
yeah.
played Mike Tyson's Punch Out mostly
Nice.
exclusively while you weren't playing or recording, and then we had our demo and we just hit the ground running with it. I mean, we just printed up some copies and then we just started giving them away for free pretty much. I mean, we sold them at shows, but
wasn't it great to just have no responsibilities except
Oh,
for
yeah.
playing?
Yeah.
I mean, we set out early on. I think it's probably because of me, because I'm always like more calculated and like I'm not really impulsive. Like I'm very much like I'm regimented. I like to have a schedule. I like to like do things like that. So when we first started the band, I was like, okay, I know people. I went to college in Rhode Island, so I was like, I know people in Rhode Island. We could play out of state. We could play here. We could play there. We made friends with Dead Eyes Under from Connecticut, who were friends with Ground Zero. We were like, we could play there. So we started to just, we had a really hard time getting shows on Long Island because Long Island, to me, being somewhat of an outsider, not knowing the like Artie and some of the other folks that were like doing the shows and being connected in any way with them, I was like, well, it's so hard to get a show here.
Was it hard or you just didn't try?
I thought it was hard, but I probably didn't try either. But I just remember saying, like, if we go and play out of state and people take a liking to us, then maybe that would kind of get somewhat of a groundswell here. And it actually is what happened. Eventually, people started to book us because us playing out of state started to get a little bit of something like a buzz happening, mostly like Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, those areas. And then eventually we started to play Long Island's and eventually, you know, made friends with like Mark at Deja and places like that. But it took us a little while to crack into that. Like we didn't get offers and I was even trying to book our own shows at a lot of the venues.
Was this like 96?
Probably 96, 97.
Yeah.
And then I was booking shows at like other venues. So I think that somewhat to a degree it was a little bit competitive with other folks that were doing shows here. So it was somewhat hard in, you know, to that degree. And I was also
like,
young.
What was, because for anyone from not Long Island, like what was like Long Island scene like then, 96, 97 that you remember?
I remember thinking it was cliquey, but also at the same time not like just feeling like I didn't know how to like get in with them, and like
What were
how
some
do
of the
I?
bands playing?
I'm trying to think. So like Cleanser was still around.
That
when
was
we
also
first
like kind
started,
of like when
right?
Exit Records like
Exit
blew up.
was big.
So you
Motive,
you had Motive, Silent Majority, Millhouse, Sons of Abraham. Like all those bands were,
Shout out to Keith Moore.
Yeah, that's right. There
Cleanser.
You go.
Yeah, and I mean also like I don't think any of us were really outwardly friendly either. Like we were outsiders to a degree, but we also weren't like these guys that were like, coming in and trying to be like, hey, what can we do? How can we, like how could we help? Anything like that. We just we weren't, even myself, like, and a lot of us, like we weren't like just very open and like we weren't the type of people that you could just like come up to and be like, hey, and strike up a conversation and we'd be best friends. Like
I feel like I'm the same way.
Yeah.
To this day, and there is a lot of that not that you should do when you play shows, but it's easier to kind of interact with people when you're like that.
Yeah. I think it's also the fact that for me, I felt as though I didn't want to feel like we were begging. I think that's what bothered me.
Completely.
I didn't want to feel like I was begging someone to give us a show. I wanted us to get a show based on the merit of people liking the music we played. And maybe they didn't like us, and that's okay. But eventually it just got to the point where I think, through us booking our own shows and making friends out of state that wanted to come and play, and then also we became a band that would bring some people. So then you put a band that would bring some people on a show, and we started to get shows that way. So it was a little bit of both. I'm not saying
they came to you.
Yeah, I'm not saying it wasn't hard work, because it definitely was hard work in that sense. But I always felt uncomfortable about having to approach a stranger and being like, please give us a show. We're trying so hard. Like
to this day, when I go, like when I think about my band and I see people that do it, more power to them. Maybe I should be doing this. But they're like, some big band rolls around. They're like, hey, man, if you need anyone to open up, I'm like, nah, I couldn't do that.
Yeah,
yeah, it's uncomfortable.
It's like, if you don't ask us, I'm not asking. And that's, I don't know, maybe it's just it's just this weird, like, criminal mentality that I had, because for like, to like the age of 20, that's just what I was, 2022. So it's just like, it was very, I don't know, it was like a street mentality of like, fuck me, fuck you.
But
I never said fuck you. And it's like, yeah, no, well, all right, just in case, fuck you.
It's also the thing where it's like I never felt shame in calling someone out of state and being like, we're on tour, can you please give us a show?
Absolutely.
But on Long Island, I don't know why, I just always felt uncomfortable like asking people, especially people that were my peers. I always felt like maybe we should be doing more. So it was a little bit uncomfortable for me in that sense.
And in the beginning, so from the beginning to like, let's say the middle, like do you feel like the sound evolved? Was it always like, what was the main goal of Sky Came Falling when you guys started? Just tour?
All I wanted to do was put out a 7-inch and go on tour. That was it. That was all I wanted to do.
How'd that work out?
Never did that 7-inch.
Yeah, we never did a 7-inch. All I wanted to do, I thought like if we could get somebody to put out a 7-inch, this would be like the greatest achievement, because we were seeing, I mean, back then putting out a CD was a big deal.
Absolutely.
Like that was a big deal.
Yeah.
And even like people that were signed to labels like Exit, that was a big deal. Like I remember still to this day thinking that, like, I remember getting the Motive 7-inch and being like, this is unreal. Like there's
still is
no other sound like it. It's still one of my favorite 7-inches, probably one of the best 7-inches to come off Long Island in my opinion. But back then, like just having somebody that was willing to put any amount of money into your band, and even if you were like to just put even if you were paying for it and they were willing to just put their label name on the bottom, was like just
that was a
huge.
big deal.
Yeah,
that was a big deal. Like even like the people that made like fake label names just to have something on.
Yeah,
because if your shit didn't have nothing on the back of that CD, it looked kind of whack. Like you needed like
a logo of some sort.
Yeah, you need some.
Yeah. I just remember that being like the one thing that we aspired to do was just how could we put out a 7-inch, and through the grapevine, Good Life got in touch with us. I think we gave away so Victory Records used to have a chat room. I know it sounds crazy back then, but it was called Vic Chat. And that's actually where I met the guys from Poison the Well. That's actually where that's where I started the label, from finding bands that were on this Vic Chat. And I started to mail our demo out to people. Just be like, hey, I'll trade you tapes. In fact, the singer from Further Seems Forever, the second singer, Jason, the guy who did How to Start a Fire. Him and I we traded tapes over through the mail. That's how we know each other. So like I was doing that with people. I'd be like, oh, there's this band, check them out, here's a tape.
That's super intimate. You know, that's like super intimate, and in a way it's almost like the social media prototype.
Yeah.
You know, but not on that
I used
vast
to do
level.
that, like out of the back of magazines, trade stuff with guys in Europe and stuff like that back in the day, and get a lot of good stuff, meet cool people.
You meet
fun.
cool people, and it's just like people that not everyone likes. Fucking, I don't know. Give me some weird random black metal band from Norway.
I wasn't really listening to that then.
Not everyone likes Burzum, So.
I don't think I even like Burzum.
He got into black metal in his 40s, so
yeah,
you're gonna have to
Weird.
excuse him.
Yeah, I don't know what
Johnny
happened.
North too. My friend Johnny North did the same thing. He got as he got older.
I like the fact that I'm listening to heavier shit than I ever was older. Like legitimizes my old ass.
Well, people your age are like they moved on to like Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah, which I want to kill them and him.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know, it's kind of like when you, like for me being into movies, I'm glad that I didn't see The Godfather until like 6 years ago.
Wow.
And I tell people, I'm glad I'm old enough to appreciate it and see it the first time. Because anybody I've ever met has been like, I wish I could go back and see it the first time.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of cool, like when you get into stuff older and you could appreciate it, because back then, like you might have just been like, I don't like this genre.
I'm a firm believer in, sometimes a music or a song or something could be like 10% how good it is and 90% of when you listen to it at the right time and it made sense.
Yeah.
Like I might have been really pissed off one day and Dark Throne never made sense to me, and it just was like, I hear it now.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
It just hit me at the right time.
You just needed to be the right type of angry.
Yes.
Going back to The Godfather, that's interesting. So what made you watch it 6 years ago? You figured it was just time?
So I'm really into like research and lists and things like that.
Oh, you came to the right.
So yeah,
Say no
right.
more, fam.
I just go down crazy rabbit holes. So all I wanted to do was see the top like 10 movies on IMDb, the top 10 rated movies. So I realized I'd only seen like 2. So I was like, I'm just going to go down the list and see all these movies. So I saw Shawshank for the first time.
12 Angry Men.
I didn't see that. I actually didn't.
I tried to do the same thing.
But
Shawshank's amazing.
so
Great movie.
crazy because everybody was like, you're going to love that more than The Godfather. But I sat on the edge of my seat for The Godfather, and I will tell you that the scene where
Don't ruin
he's standing outside the hospital where you stand.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was it had everything.
Put your hand in your jacket.
I
make sure-
was like, I just remember being like, this movie has everything I could love about like cinema.
Oh, it's a
Just
masterpiece.
wrapped into one thing. And it blew my mind. And then everybody's like, oh, the second one's going to be better. I didn't find it better. I thought the first one was better.
Oh, wow.
And then Shawshank, everybody said was going to be like the best movie I ever saw. And I was like, I really enjoyed it. But again, like I thought The Godfather was just like the perfect movie.
I only saw Shawshank like not so long ago too, and people were like, "What? You haven't seen that?" And I kind of started to like the fact that they got so upset that I hadn't seen it that I purposely wasn't going to see it. Just
Hey, it's
to
the
do
guy
that.
that never saw Shawshank.
Yeah, that was my thing.
That was your thing.
Oh, you got to meet Brian. He's never seen
Yeah.
Shawshank. But it was good. But yeah, it's no Godfather. Come on. But that's one series though, Godfather 1 and 2. That it's very debatable.
yeah,
What
I
could be
loved
better?
one. I thought one was way more interesting.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
It's in a different way. You know what I mean? I love part 2 though, how they go back with De Niro and how they came.
Well, they
up
tell
and
the
stuff.
dual story.
Yeah.
I like that. But what else was on that list that you saw?
To be honest, I think maybe like I think Pulp Fiction might be on it. I remember rewatching that. I think Dark Knight is on it. There's a couple of the Batmans that are on it in the top.
Wow, well, you don't have to
10.
mention the shitty ones.
But
It's fucking crazy.
yeah, there's
But
a few.
that's
I
on
can't
top.
remember. There's a couple of older ones that I always wanted to go back and see, but I was just like, I kind of faded out. I didn't commit fully to it. But I just remember
Kill a
being like,
Mockingbird.
yeah, I'd seen that, but like it's like I just wanted to see these top movies that everybody was talking about. I had like a movie sort of renaissance, like maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, where I just like wanted to see as many movies as I could, especially older ones, and stuff that I'd missed as a kid. So I just wanted to go back, and then
Parker's
got
still
it.
in his renaissance.
I was about to say the shit's in order, so if I can have at it.
Why don't you just hang out here?
I
for
don't
the
have a
next-
VCR. So it's
I got 5. I got 5. Don't worry, you can borrow one.
So I actually don't even have a DVD player.
Neither
anymore.
do I.
It's like I just read like, and I also talk to people like that pirate, like clearly steal like movies and stuff like that. I just don't have the time and I don't the effort to go through and find like a version that's actually good that's going to look okay on a TV larger than like 40 inches.
That's where I don't mind paying for. We were talking about Amazon.
I don't mind at all.
We were like whatever it is. It's such a tiny subscription, even on YouTube. The movie Shot Caller, which was on my list for best movies of last year, I started watching it on the stick because I couldn't find it anywhere else, and then it kept buffering. So I'm like, I need to see this because it started doing that halfway through, and then I found it on YouTube. I was like, perfect. I spent $4 to fucking rent it. For it to not buffer, absolutely take my money.
Well, you
please.
got it like that. You Misfits tickets, your fucking $5 YouTube movie, fucking making it rain over here.
That's what happens when you have no responsibilities in life.
Yeah, I
or
don't mind
future.
renting from
I remember
iTunes. I'm like renting it up from iTunes. I don't mind. Like
Yeah.
if it's not on Netflix or Hulu, I'm like, I really don't mind spending the
That's how-
$5.
I feel the same way about that. That's how I feel like Spotify, like anything
any of it.
that I get my money's worth.
Sure.
That I go and I'm like, the only thing that's getting a little bit obscene are ticket prices at the theaters, but I get it because it's this straight like competition. It's almost like ticket prices at concerts now. It's like, okay, you guys want to download the music, you guys want to stream shit, $35. Nah, well, let's make it $50 now. Okay, fine. So now you pay $50. Fucking, and same thing with movie theaters. It's like you're competing with so many other outlets that I feel like they're like seriously like it's almost $20 a ticket to go see a movie, which is fine, but I don't know. And then the movie pass I like. Did you do the movie?
I didn't
pass?
do the movie.
Cousin Mike did that. He told me about that.
Cousin Mike. I like.
Big list on the Cousin Mike.
Which one is he? Is he?
Wojner.
Wojner.
Yeah.
I like Cousin Mike.
Yeah,
He
Cousin
PMs
Mike's a good
me every
guy.
now and then.
Yeah, we have the Long Beach Theater by me because I live in Long Beach. The Long Beach Theater has the reserve seating. It's not like an AMC. It's just a local theater. They have reserve seating. So I like doing that just because at least you go and it's like, you have a seat, and I just don't like having to go in and be like, where am I going to sit? Am I going to sit in the front? Like,
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Yeah.
So-
And then Malvern. I don't know if you've ever gone to Malvern.
I don't even know where that is.
Malvern is a really tiny little town that is north
Upstate?
of that is north of Long Beach by like right past Rockville Center. It's got this
Okay.
tiny little movie theater that only accepts cash, and they show a lot of independent films. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite movie theaters to go.
Wow.
That's what I loved about the city. So whenever, back, 20 plus years ago, there were certain movies in movie theaters. That's where I saw Boogie Nights. Like there was always these like tiny theaters that would just show specific movies, like Animal Factory. I remember seeing when I was going to school in the city. And those indie flicks always found their theaters somewhere in Manhattan. And I fucking loved going like the IFC theater. That's where I saw the Human Centipede. I went there and I was just like, fuck it, let's go. And it was, it was all right.
I think I saw the Kurt Cobain documentary there, not like the one.
The Heck.
Montage of
Montage of Heck.
Yes, that one.
What do
Like
you think of that?
after I
like-
saw Buzz from the Melvins sort of take or review of it, where he kind of called it bogus, I was a little bit like, but I enjoyed it as like watching the movie. There was definitely footage that I like had no idea. The same goes for, I think I don't know if it's on Netflix any longer, but the drummer from Hole had a documentary, and they had some footage that I was like, I'd never seen.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting as well, like just the dynamic between like Kurt and Courtney at the time, and it was just such an interesting time. But
Absolutely. And it was so quick too.
yeah,
Like that.
long enough for him to write "Live Through This," but yes,
Heyo.
Did you see that other one? The one when they basically blamed Courtney for killing him. What was the name of that one?
That was like some pretty stupid sensationalist.
I loved
fucking-
it.
that's on Netflix, right? I believe it's like more
where I
like
saw it.
FBI-ish.
It sold me.
Well,
Yeah.
Unsolved Mysteries also had it too, and they kind of like made her look shitty. So shout out to Robert Stack for doing that.
Nice. Caddyshack 2, baby.
I'm still watching. now that Amazon Prime has brought Unsolved Mysteries back.
It's so good.
Hell yeah.
With the updates at the end,
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with the
I love that.
the original ones.
Oh,
and this guy's
absolutely.
voice is so creepy.
Yeah.
It's
the
like the
best.
perfect voice to like do a show like that.
Great
Yeah.
reenactments. The intro is great. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah.
And plus, they have like the feel good stuff they'll throw in the middle. Like, this guy got reunited with his family after 40 years. Like, it's just, there's so many strange things that it just blows my mind.
It is good stuff.
Yeah.
So, all right, moving forward with the band. So we figured 96, 97. So what's going on? Like, you guys just kept playing shows, getting a local following.
Yeah, I mean, we really early on played out-of-state shows, as I mentioned. And then I think the first summer we were, like, the first full cycle, because I was still going to college. And I would come down on the weekends to practice. So they would practice without me during the week, and I'd come down on the weekends, and like we didn't have the internet.
In the writing of the, like, for you as a vocalist, like, was it always easy for you to, because I'm a vocalist too, so I love melody. I love the idea of melody. I love the idea of songwriting. So they would give you pieces of music, and you would just kind of do your thing over it?
Yeah, so they would write like a whole song and be like, "Hey, this is what we have. What could you put to it?" And I'd look through my book, like, because I was always writing. And I would be like, "Oh, this works. This pattern works. But can we, change this, instead of playing it 6 times, play it 4 times, or something like that, or maybe make it faster." Little things to just make the vocals kind of go with what it was. But that was it. They primarily wrote like whole things, whole songs.
Did you feel like you had a knack for that?
I think it worked well. Like, as far as like how they were doing it, I think that. I was just trying to jam as many words in this thing that I wrote.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is my whole thought. Let me try to put all of this in there. So I was trying to do that, which is oftentimes why some of the songs just make absolutely no sense, because I'd like just couldn't fit the lines that there were 17 more sentences that I wanted to say.
Yeah. Why did this story end here?
It worked better for the full length because the songs got longer, but at the time, I mean, that's just, we didn't have the internet to share stuff, so I was just like, I'd come down, they had full songs, they worked, I thought they were great songs, so it was easy enough to just put the vocals to them. We didn't really scrap that many songs, maybe 1 or 2.
No.
I mean, crazy enough, the whole life of the band, we were around for 1996 to 2003, so 7 years, and I think we might have written like 25 songs.
You guys did write like super like technical, like it wasn't like 3-chord pop, so those songs are a little bit harder to write, I think.
We were also lazy. I definitely think that like
there
was I appreciate it, but we were definitely like where. As we got older, people were working. It became more of a, like, when you're also on tour, you can't write, or at least we couldn't write at the time. So we'd just be focused on tour, and we toured to some points. I think we were 8 months, 9 months out of the year we were gone.
Hey,
no. So wow, 25 songs in 7 years. Definitely is, whatever. You guys did your thing. You guys toured more than most. You guys played shows. You guys released music anyway. But I guess, if you say you're lazy, then that's fine. So what was it like being on tour with Brian Parker? Anything funny that you could tell our 3 listeners?
So the thing to remember is Parker didn't get his license. When did you get your license?
Like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That I believe.
Parker didn't drive, so all of us basically were like, if I look back on it this way, if you could imagine, right, that you would be chauffeured from one city to the next city, where you were able to sit in the van and watch movies the entire time you were chauffeured, and then you get to your destination, you eat, you go play a show, and you get back into the van. That's what it was like.
I was like my own celebrity.
That's what we basically did for him.
Clever like a fox.
But on top of it, like, there were so many times that we would get to like destinations. Like, we're in Seattle. Let's go walk around Seattle. We've been talking about Nirvana and grunge and all this. Like, I was like, let's go. It's our first time in Seattle. Let's go. He's like, I'm going to stay in the bus. I'm going to watch. And when I say bus, we had like a little school bus. He's like, I'm going to stay in the bus. I'm going to watch movies.
I'm going to watch Summer School for the 18th time.
We went to Yosemite National Park. We're like, we're going to go hiking. do you want to come? No, I'm going to stay in the bus.
Too much work.
He never
Too much work.
left. He got driven around in a movie theater the entire time.
And we had N64 in that too, so I was playing like
Yeah.
GoldenEye and shit. So
yeah, so
This
we
isn't
it was
a
like my
van?
bedroom on wheels. That's all that
like
it
a
was.
van?
we had a mini.
What was your setup?
It was an
to watch?
MT.
it was an old MTA
Yeah.
bus.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
The
happened
short
was
MTA
our
buses.
one guitarist, his father owned a garage, and that's how we actually got the first bus that we had. That actually Chris Enriquez later put on fire after
Yeah,
he
we sold it to On the Might of Princes, and they burned it down.
and he stuffed like a dirty sock when there was like an oil change. And
What
the
is
thing
that little guy
exploded.
doing now these days?
Yeah. So this woman who worked for like a handicap school brought in this MTA bus, and there was a lift for the wheelchair, and it was broken. So she brought it in. She was talking to John's father. Blah blah blah. How much does it cost to fix? I think he said it was like $2,000 or something to fix the lift. She's like, "Fuck that! I'm not gonna fix it. Whatever." And he goes, "Would you be up for selling it? My son is in a band. He's gonna hit the road. Blah blah blah." So I think he fucking got it for like $1,000. So he made off with it or whatever.
So he paid $1,000 for your bedroom.
Yes, yes. So he winds up fixing the wheelchair ramp, and then we like customize it. So we take out, I think there was 2 rows of back seats. We got rid of those. So now we could put the amps and the drums, and we actually put like kind of like a loft on top, so people could sleep, however uncomfortable it was, on top of the
TV
gear
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So then
put
we
a TV up in the top, like
Yeah.
above where the driver was. There was a little like sort of area you duck your head. You came in, and there was this area, so we had it cut out, and we actually put a TV in there, and then we ran the wires.
TV
off that.
VCR. Yeah.
Yeah, so we had a TV VCR,
Yeah.
which worked out well because Parker
Worked out great because I had 100 VHS tapes. So
Did you bring all the
every fucking one of them. Every fucking one of them.
And there was a time that I remember this part. I remember this specifically. So Parker brought this old bag of VHS tapes, and all of a sudden, our van got infested by earwigs.
Silverfish, right?
They were like the little things with the pinchers on the end. And there were hundreds of them all over because they came from that stupid bag you grabbed out of the garage.
Oh my god!
And we had to like fumigate the entire van on tour because like they were all over the place, like everywhere.
So no one choked him to sleep.
Nah.
Like no one really.
There was, he mostly fell asleep drunk.
Yeah.
Then because him and John were both
Oh, yeah.
heavy drinkers at the time that we were touring.
Once you spend that much time together, you do like personalities do affect you, but at the end of the day, you guys are playing music across the country. Like you said, you're in Seattle.
Yeah,
doing
I
all
mean,
these
it was we did our first West Coast tour probably like 2001. I think around the time we put out our full length and we signed to Ferret.
Was that before or after 9/11?
Before, because I remember we were in Texas, we were in Arizona. When 9/11
Yep.
happened.
Wow.
And we got pulled over twice with the van through, going through Texas. It happened when we were on tour with Santa Sangre.
Yep.
So as we were coming home, we were stopped a few times because of the size of our van and the possibility there could be explosives. And getting into New York was a total nightmare. But just that whole we decided in 2000, maybe 2001, that we were just going to do this full time, and we just put the pedal to the metal and just went out on tour. And we were lucky enough to have connected with Jim Grimes, who was booking some great bands at the time, and we ended up getting hooked up with a couple of tours that, we went out with Thursday, went out with Santa Sangre, we went out with Unearthed at one point. We did a couple of things with Hopesfall. I can't even remember.
Living Sacrifice.
Living Sacrifice. We went out with a bunch of bands, and we just went out and played and just continued to do it. But after a while, it just became so draining that...
It is draining. I would imagine it's completely draining, and I think that's kind of like where some bands either get over that hump, or they just kind of I guess the wheels fall off. That's what I gather from talking to so many people.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for us, there were parts where we started to realize quickly that other aspects of our lives were starting to become more important. Like when you're in a band and you're 19, and that's it. That's all you have. But as we got to 22, 23, 24, some of us, I had never finished college. I left college for the band. And also other members had started to leave by that point. So Parker was gone.
No.
Matt
Was
had
he,
already been
was
gone.
he the first one?
Matt was first.
Matt was the first one, yeah.
Matt was first. He was our bass player. He left first. And then we got another bass player. We had a series of bass players that came through. Then we got Joe, and then Joe left. And then after Joe, we got Sal. But I think that I've always looked at it as like sort of like eras, right? There's kind of like the beginning where we were all like young and enthusiastic and had no idea what we were doing, to the middle where things started to settle down and felt like they were under control and we were just full speed ahead touring. And then there was like the end where like it felt like we were just starting to go through motions. I mean, even the last EP we recorded, right? It just, I tell people this all the time. It's like after so long of being on tour, it just started to feel like we were listening to what other people were telling us what to do. We started, in the beginning, you're doing your own thing. You're kind of like, people would say to you, you know, hey, do this, do that, do this. And we'd be like, no, we're going to do it our way. And after being on tour for 4 years and not really seeing the things kind of grow, I mean, we always did well, and that's the good thing, but there's only, when you're on tour and you're 22 years old and you're getting $5 a day, there's only so much you can do with that $5. And we started to listen to people to be like, oh, you guys should sing more, you should play slower, you should be more melodic, you should do this. And you start to think in your head, like, is that why we're not taking that next step? So we kind of stalled out at that middle ground, and we watched bands that, you know, like bands like Poison the Well, bands like Unearthed, bands that we had toured with or were friends with, actually start to move up. And even younger bands that were coming up around that time, you know, somewhat surpass us. And it became disheartening. I mean, I won't lie, to the point that it started to be like, well, what are we still doing this for?
Yeah.
And we took that one last crack with that EP to like try to do something different. And I remember just listening back to it after we recorded it, and I was like, we were in talks to sign to Victory, which felt uncomfortable at the time given the history there. And
so the history was already a thing by then, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we had seen it happen. You know, it was just kind of known at the time, like in the industry. Like even though bands were doing well, there was always this like I had met with Tony on a few occasions, and it always somewhat felt like a little bit of the evil empire. I mean, he was always a nice guy to me, but it felt very corporate.
Even looking back now, you still wouldn't have.
No, I don't think so. Like we got to know Carl.
From Ferret?
From Ferret, yeah. We got to know Carl from Ferret. Carl was a great guy. Like he really was young and wanted the best for us and was willing to invest in us. And I mean, even Good Life, right? Anybody that's willing to put their money, whether that be personal or business, and invest that in your band
because they believe in you.
Because they believe in you is just it's mind-boggling to me, right? It's like, so, you know, I 100% appreciate everything that everybody did for us, but there got to a point where it started to be like, well, are we just doing things for other people, right? Do we need to start being more selfish and start to do this for us? And that was sort of that era where those last 2 songs came out, and I don't think they came from a place of like honesty and, you know, the passion we had for doing this anymore. And so when we broke up, Ferret had said to us, you know, hey, you guys have a lot of debt, and we didn't want to leave him hanging. So we gave him these 2 songs and said, hey, if you release this, like, and we don't want anything for it, you know, is that enough to pay back the money we owe you? And he was like, yeah. So we washed the slate clean with that.
Interesting. Yeah, I always wondered what happens to like band debt.
Yeah, it typically goes away, or from what I know, right? Unless you're signed to a contract where you're signed personally, which we weren't. It became a thing where we just felt like we had taken tour support, or we had, you know, had him print merch or whatever it was that we owed him money for, and we felt like, you know, it's not right to just walk away given the size of the label at the time. So we let him release those 2 songs, because if we didn't have that debt, those 2 songs would have never made it out. You know, they'd probably be on the internet now, but yeah, they were recorded as a demo to shop to labels.
Gotcha.
And, you know, as I mentioned, we had talked to Victory for a little while and just didn't feel right. And then we decided like that was it. And after that, you know, we broke up, and that's when The Sleeping formed.
And what was that last show like?
So we didn't officially play a last show that we knew was going to be our last show. So we had already booked a Long Island show when we decided we were going to break up, and we decided like we're going to make that the last show. And then we had booked another show the weekend after that under a different name where we played our EP in its entirety. So we booked ourselves as Embrace the Sun. And by that point, we kind of knew, like, and then people knew, like, this is going to be our last show. And we honestly thought, like, that was going to be it. And then we got an offer to play Hellfest the following year. And we said, like, well, we never really did truly a last show for people that wanted to see us. So we went and did that after that.
I think that's the footage, right? I think I've seen some of that.
Probably, yeah.
On
That's,
YouTube.
I think Zizzo was playing with us by that point.
Yeah.
So it was Zizzo, Sal, myself, John, and Cameron when we did that last Hellfest show. And at that last Hellfest show, some of us weren't even talking to each other. We had kind of like our relationships were somewhat strained at the time.
Were you at that last one?
I was there. Yeah, I showed up just to kind of
Were you
send
trying to
them
get
off.
on the list?
No. I got on that though. I didn't have to try. But it was awkward. I mean, just nobody was communicating and talking to each other, and I was just like, man, I was like, this is fucking.
I think
rough.
we all came up separately. We didn't even come up as a
they
band.
didn't even drive together. Like
Yeah.
I was like, this is fucking bad.
Yeah.
So
You split and watched VHS tapes.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
out.
I mean they sounded great. I mean the fucking crowd went crazy, but I mean I was just like, holy shit! I'm like, this is an ugly way to end.
But
So,
years later, you guys did a reunion? Was that 2005?
I think so.
is that what it was?
I
I'm
think it was
trying.
Long Island Fest. 2005 sounds.
I think that's about right.
Yeah, that sounds right. Because then we did a 2011. But yeah, we got Jake from Jake Zimmerman, East Coast Collective.
Coast,
yeah,
yeah.
he had contacted us, and the year before we were supposed to play, and Cameron actually injured his hand,
Yep.
so we had to cancel. But we had always gotten some like offers, like, "Hey, would you guys play this? Would you guys play that?" It never really felt like the timing was right. And around that time, there was like stuff happening personally. Everybody was kind of talking again. Matt, who we had lost touch with for a while, was talking. We were all like communicating, and obviously none of us had really lost touch with Cameron. But at that point, it really felt like it was the right time for us to play. So
So you start the text message.
Yeah, I think that so. Myself and Matt actually had played in a band together for a short while with a couple other local friends, and Parker actually played in
Yeah.
it. It was like a weird era that I was like we were doing this other band, and
Hallahan too.
yeah, Rob.
Yeah.
It was actually so Rob Hallahan, who was a fill-in drummer for us, who played on the last EP, and Matt were in a band with me called Farewell Tide, and then that band broke up, and then a year later we were like, let's try to do it again, but Matt had already moved, and Rob really wasn't interested in doing it, so Parker actually joined. So it was just kind of an evolving member of a couple of people that I knew that played music, and oddly enough were in Sky Came Falling. And so when 2005 rolled around and we got the offer, it just felt like it was the right time. Like we were all communicating. We were actually in a much better place than the last show we played. So we decided like, okay, let's do this one-time thing. And because I'd always said like, we're never going to do a show. Like we're never going to do a reunion
Don't
show.
you know you never say never?
I was dead set against it. I was like, there is no way we're going to play a show. I'm not interested in doing this. I don't want to relive the stuff that we did back in the day. Like I'm done. Like this era's finished. I really hadn't been playing music at all outside of that other little band for a little while. And so when that offer came up, it just felt like the right time.
And then the same thing in 2011, which like leads us to today, man. So February 23rd, which is in like 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
How did this upcoming reunion start?
So Tom from Obnoxious Noise has always,
McCarthy,
he's always supported my other band Divider.
Okay.
And we've always chatted on the internet, and he sent me a message and said, hey, what would it take to do a Sky Came Falling show? And I was like, I don't know, let me see, and I always feel bad because we get offers to play shows, and sometimes they're benefit shows and things that we'd want to do, but the fact that Cameron is located in LA and the fact that Matt's located in North Carolina, it takes a lot to get them here. They have to be here for like a couple of days to at least practice and get everything together and get all those, just make sure that we're not just not prepared. I mean, we want to be prepared when we play. So Tom had reached out and said, hey, what would it take for you guys to play. And I said, well, let me find out. So I reached out to the guys and I said, hey, we got offered to play this fest. Do you guys want to play? And everybody was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So it was actually as simple as that. It was just a matter of, what would it take? And I said, look, we have to fly Cameron in. We have to get Matt up. As long as, those expenses are covered, we should be fine. Yeah. And Tom was like, sure. And we'd always wanted to play Amityville. So we'd never been able to play Amityville Music Hall because the last time we were supposed to play there, the show. So we've had a thing where the last 2 reunion shows we've done on Long Island were moved the day of the show. Mm-hmm. That happened at Amityville Music Hall the first time we were supposed to play, and it happened at the Long Island Fest where the venue fell through, and we ended up having to play in Ronkonkoma.
Yep.
So both times we've played a show, and on Long Island in these last 2 reunions have actually been moved the day of.
If there's one thing I know about playing shows is never get your show moved to Ronkonkoma. It's like the kiss of death.
Yeah, we played I think we played the bar like in the Ronkonkoma like train station.
Yeah.
Oh,
Tracks
Actually.
Yeah,
it changes names every week.
Yeah, we played Tracks.
That strip right there,
it's so sad.
It is. It might as well be like a strip in like Kansas City when you get off the train. It just looks like this ghost town. No matter what goes there, the only thing that still stands there is a subway. That's the only shit that'll never die. Everything else just like comes and fucking goes, and it's just like But yeah,
shout out to Ronkonkoma.
Shout out to Ronkonkoma for holding it down. But Tom from Obnoxious Noise, man, that kid works super hard. Very passionate about heavy and extreme music. I don't know him too well, but I love his hustle. I love his passion for bands. Can't say enough about him.
Post on the internet more than Parker.
Yeah.
Does Parker post that much? I don't even notice.
I feel like Parker does.
Lately, I've just been sharing his stuff.
I guess we're really bad then. Constantly.
I have 2 podcasts. I have no choice.
I fall somewhere like halfway between like what Joe Rubino said about social media and I'm not really super interested in like posting every minute of every day. Like I'm more than happy to read. And the only reason I still have like Facebook is just because sometimes I feel like I just don't know what's going on. I got rid of it for a little while and I felt like I didn't know what was going on, especially for records. I just want to know like when are new releases coming out and when's a show going to happen.
Never listen to Joe Rubino. That's all I know. So that's how I live my life.
Well, I mean, outside of fluoride being in the water,
there you go.
It's a scary place now. I mean, but it's just one of those things where I wanted to make sure that when we played the show, like it was like somebody that wanted to do it, and he seemed really into it, and
Absolutely.
That was. I mean, a lot of people ask us like, "Hey, you should play this fest, or you should play this fest, or that fest, or you should come out to, Kansas and play a show," and I'm like, we don't get offers for these things. Like, typically, I don't believe you could just show up to shows and be like, hey, we want to play this festival. Like, that doesn't happen. And so, the fact that Tom was really into the band and really wanted to do it and had that passion for doing it, and with the bands that we're playing with, it was pretty much a no-brainer.
Well, I'll be there, kind
Nice.
of. I have a show. I'm playing a show that day, but I'll go after the show.
You're rivaling our show?
No, it's believe me, there's no rivaling. I don't think the Rhett Miller crowd from Old 97s is going to be heading over with me. But I'm opening up a show in Bayshore, and the headliner goes on at 9, so I should be over there by 10.
With the amount of bands that are playing this, we'll
Well, 'cause
probably
he
be
said-
on by
How many bands
2.
is it?
He said 10:15, and
No
I looked
way.
at the
I have
lineup.
no. Yeah, that's why I said,
was
"How
like-
are we playing at 10?" He's like, "We're gonna backline." I said, "Okay, you can fucking backstroke all you want, man. We ain't playing at 10:15."
No.
How many bands is it?
7.
Wow.
7 doors at 5.
Experience tells me that we'll be on around 1 in the morning.
Yeah,
I think so too. That sounds about right. The
that's
time-
way past
gonna
my
be
fucking
late,
bedtime,
bro.
man.
Yeah.
Holy
The
shit!
fuck are you gonna do?
Good thing I'm on vacation that week. I know.
Yeah, your tempos are going to be way low. That
Winter recess, man. I'm out of there.
by the time you guys play, Sarah will be on her way to the gym.
Very true.
So okay, cool. That's the story of Sky Came Falling. I think right there. You're happy to be back, Parker.
Yeah, I'm having a
You're
blast.
ready to make a career out of it. You're gonna come out
Let's
of
do
retirement.
it, man. I'm ready to do it.
Actually, funny Parker story. I remember when the first time we thought about breaking up was in Texas.
Yeah, that was a brutal show.
And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I want to quit. And Parker said to me, I was like,
Words of wisdom.
So I said, so what do you want to? I said to Parker, what are you gonna do after this band? And he was like, I'm gonna be a pro wrestler, and that was his like backup plan. And I was like, that's it? And he's like, yeah, no, that's what I'm gonna do. I was like, all right. So
didn't work out.
What was your gimmick? What would have been your gimmick?
I don't know, like maybe do like that fart noise with my armpit. I don't know. Would that work?
Were you going to do the triple Lindy off the
There was this guy who used to do this dive.
Were you serious when you told him that?
I don't even know, man. I was probably fucking drunk out of my mind. Who knows? All that I remember about that Texas show was we were, funny enough, going back to heavy music and like, you know, how do you get the scream and everything. We were insanely into, for those 2 weeks leading up to that show, I don't know why, but all we were listening to was Jimmy Eat World Bleed America, which is very weird.
Amazing record.
Yeah, and
you're talking to a guy who played in the Jimmy Eat World.
I know, yeah, I know. And funny enough, I listened to it today on the treadmill, and I was like, holy shit, this fucking album is great. And I remember some kid coming up to me at that show and saying that the reason why he learned how to play drums was hearing the Sky Came Falling demo. And I was just like, holy fucking shit. I'm like, that's like the highest honor you could ever say. And I remember we decided that that was going to be our last show. And when you talk about channeling anger through your instruments, I don't think that we've ever played that fucking hard ever. I mean, I don't know how I still had drum heads left on that set at the end. I was hitting so fucking hard because I was so pissed because I was just like,
do you know who that kid was?
I don't know.
It was Zach from Jimmy Eat World.
Nice. All right.
That kid grew up.
He grew up.
I was hoping it was fucking Brooks Wackerman from fucking Bad for Good, maybe.
All right. Well, listen, we're all going to be at
I could
the show.
just imagine, guys, I'm leaving the band. Really? I'm going to wrestling school.
That's it, man.
That sounds like some shit like unlike.
Is there a school?
Yeah.
I think
Rick's in it right now. You know?
I didn't know that.
I think you need a license to wrestle.
Yeah.
I'm
out then.
So yeah, I guess that's it. Let's do our top 5. We here at Red River like doing lists because we like dissecting things that no one.
Everybody, get your notes out.
No one in their right mind would give a shit about except us. So I figured it would be good.
So they're agonizing all
Yeah.
that. Who's my number 5?
Where normal people are like, worrying about normal things like wrestling
work?
school. we were trying to pick our top 5 favorite albums of 1993. Me personally, like I said, the way I did my list is I guess I picked the albums that I felt shaped me from 15 till now. These are the top 5 records that came out in 1993 that just had the most impact on me musically, my swagger, whatever I got going on. So that's how I did it, but we're going to start off with Langan. So give me your number 5.
My number 5 is Bjork's debut.
Give me your real number 5.
For real. It's
Mike Randall hates it.
I love Bjork, but some of it, and I respect her artistry.
Absolutely.
But so much of it is completely inaccessible to my eardrums. But that album was a perfect mix of like post Sugar Cubes, the sound of the moment, a lot of like New York house sound.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Some real downbeat stuff like what's that? Close to Me, no, that's a Cure song. I think it is Close to Me.
I don't remember.
There's a song on there. It's like a down tempo, like almost like a Massive Attack kind of thing. And it was just a perfect sounding album for that time when a lot of that electronic and house shit was breaking off.
Yeah, definitely. That was the time.
And I love that she was
even
cute.
like Madonna had that record where she touched on that and
Ray of Light, but that was after this.
Was it?
Yeah. But
don't listen to me.
But yeah, no, I love that album. Loved her.
Number 5. I like it.
Yeah.
So our guest, Chris, give us your number 5 of 1983.
So first, I'm just gonna give you the one that I had to leave off.
Sure.
Because I was so upset that I had to leave off Sebadoh, Bubble, and Scrape, which was like an incredible album for me. But I did the same thing as you, Sam, as far as like the ones that shaped me. Number 5, I put Lemonhead's Come On Feel.
So, I was a little bummed that It's a Shame About Ray didn't come out in 83 because that would have been probably definitely number 2.
That's one of the greatest albums I own.
It
Period.
shaped
Yeah.
me. I was 14, but that record, Come On Feel the Lemonheads, I loved, but it was such in the shadow of It's a Shame About Ray.
Tough album to follow.
The thing about it was, I liked the fact that it was more pop, because I think he's really good at that like poppy, jangly sound.
Unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
I was disappointed because it wasn't A Shame About Ray, but there were so many hits on that record.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just start to finish, every song is a hit. And I saw him play acoustic a couple of years back, and it was incredible playing some of those songs that he played off that record.
Power pop at its just pure power pop. Like for later in life for me, like writing songs, like he was a huge inspiration because I loved those songs, those jangly pop songs that and same thing with Sebdo too. Jesus fucking Christ, like Lou Barlow is amazing. So number 5, I like it. Parker.
Wrestling
Shaq.
School. Oh, I'm sorry.
Shaq.
Yeah. Number 5,
Shaq Diesel.
Anthrax, Sound of White Noise, man. Had to go for it, My boy John Bush,
Was that 93?
Yeah.
God damn.
So
Yeah, it makes
Can we
sense.
get a Google clarification?
Sound of White Noise? That makes sense.
Okay.
no, so first John Bush album. So I don't know. That's definitely a start to finish for me.
I don't think I know a single Anthrax song.
Honestly, that's my favorite Anthrax album. I love that album from start to finish. And
I'm
think
still trying to figure out what Chris listens to because everything you mention I like, and then everything we mention you don't like. I'm trying to gauge. Yeah, I think "Only" is one of the best Anthrax songs.
That
So
is a
good.
great song.
Room for One More. It goes right into it. I pretty much my top 5 on this is based off of drumming, except for number 1.
Except
Charlie
for number 1 that
Benante
has
is killer.
Number 1 has nothing to do with drumming. The CD
Music.
yeah, it's got to do with music, but it'll all make sense.
It's like one of those.
I'll put it to
Winston
this
Hill
way:
ambient-
it's from a collector's point of view.
Okay.
Shaq, the Shaquille O'Neal
That's
record.
it.
That's
Shazam. It was the soundtrack for Shazam.
All right, so number 5 for me, it was really hard because so many hip hop records came out, and so many like awesome, great like indie rock records came out, and that's primarily what I was listening to when I was 15. So I had to do a mixture list, and these are the 5 records that when I'm eulogized, I need these records on the playlist. So whoever's eulogizing me.
Is this like a legal document we're doing here?
Saying
We need a notary down here.
Yeah, who's ever saying like nice words?
Will.
Who's ever saying nice words when I die? Like I need you to put on my number 5, which is Digable Planet's "Reachin'."
Nice.
That album.
Oh,
A lot of people think it's like this one-hit wonder
No.
with Rebirth of Slick, but those people never did drugs and never listened to all of, like 13 songs on the album.
Yeah.
There's not a bad song on there.
No.
Like it's the ultimate. I'm sorry, Guru Jazzmatazz, but it's the ultimate jazz hip hop record.
That was big at that time too, right? Then like Us 3 came out
Us
at that
3
time.
came
era.
out.
Well,
Gangstar
that's like
was very
post native tongue. Some of the native tongue
Yes.
stuff.
Well, okay.
You
Low
know?
End Theory is the only one that rivals that as far as like the
Right.
jazz selections.
But that was out what year?
91.
Right.
But
yeah.
Reach and Digable Planets, to this day, you put that on and it's like it fucking reeks of hip hop.
Yes.
Like if aliens came to this earth and they're like, "Yo, I want to hear hip hop," I'd be
Right.
like, "Say no more, fam. Let me go get my Digable Planets record." So
Last of the Spidey Ox. That's my jam. on
yeah,
that.
come on, man.
Come on.
Actually, isn't that on the second record? That's on the second record.
Nah.
Oh no, there it is.
Crazy.
I was thinking something
Blowout
else.
Combs. Not
Yeah.
bad either.
That's
that got
good, too.
slept on. But
Number
another
4.
year. I have Where You Been, Dinosaur Jr. That album, a lot of my cooler friends were into them, like with Bug and Green Mind and stuff, but I didn't really come around to them. I didn't get them till that record. And I fell in love with Jay Mascis's playing, and
He was not afraid to shred.
totally shredded. And I'm reading about him like in recently and stuff. He was in a death metal band or something, but pre-Dinosaur. So like hearing him play so aggressively on a cut that wasn't metal for me, you know what I mean? Because my mind was expanding around this time and hearing a lot of new
Very
stuff.
different. And he had a Neil Young voice.
Yes, and and the songs on it are just absolutely amazing.
Shreds.
There's not a bad song on that record.
Completely him and Doug March from Built to Spill are like the two ultimate like indie rock shredders.
Sure, I get that.
So.
Yep. But that's my number 4.
Love it. Chris, number 4.
Mine was actually another recommendation from Kurt Cobain. It was PJ Harvey, Rid of Me.
Nice. That was coming up a lot.
That was
today.
coming up a lot, and I like that because that record was amazing. So I loved it.
That was her first album, right?
I think it was her second.
Was it? Okay.
I just remember it being dark. I remembered like the song Dry and just hearing her throat, that you could, the way she's singing on that song. It's just something about that record. It was just cathartic in that, like, it was in that moment. You could hear everything of how she was feeling.
And with that, just even the album cover, with her face on there, that like it just made sense because it was just so raw.
Yes.
And that cover was just like her, and it was like unfiltered. Loved it. So Parker,
Number 4.
Chief J Strongbow.
That's it, man. Death, Individual Thought Patterns.
Nice.
First album that featured my boy Gene Hoglan smashing away on the drums. I remember I saw them live. The first thing that caught my eye was the guy was playing 2 ride cymbals, which I'd never seen. And then I'm looking straight ahead. 2 ride cymbals. No, one on each side. Not on
It's like
one on the left, one on the right. Sorry, I should have clarified that. And I'm looking at his drum set, and I'm like, what the fuck is that thing right ahead of me hanging off of his bass drum? And the Maniac actually had a boat propeller that he drilled a hole through and mounted it and put it on a cymbal stand, and he was whacking this fucking thing, and I had no clue what the hell it was. But I was lucky enough to see them live at the Roxy in Huntington in '95, I think it was. I met him beforehand. He was total sweetheart. And then by the time they played, it was probably about 2 a.m. And then Chuck, however you want to say it, Schuldiner, Schulner, whatever the last name was, met him, and he was a great guy too. And that album just floored me drumming wise, and from top to bottom. And then Symbolic was after that, and that probably even pushed it in even farther. But love that one.
Shout out to Richard Christie.
Yeah,
he joined the band.
There you go.
So.
I love bands like that though too, because I remember getting Death, Scream, Bloody Gore on vinyl and stuff. But every album was a complete progression.
Yep.
They got so technical by the end of it, and then he passed and stuff. But that's a great album. Yeah.
All right, my number 4 is from a band from Cincinnati, Ohio. The singer fucking kills it. He's an amazing singer. The guitars definitely sounded like very Jawbox-ish, very different. When all my friends were listening to hardcore, I was watching MTV, and the video for the Afghan Wigs Debonair came on, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And the song was just so different. And from that moment on, I was a huge Afghan Wigs fan. The record is called Gentleman, and to this day, like Gentleman and then Black Love came out after, and those were like the 1-2 punch. But the lyrics to Gentleman, the whole record, I can't recommend it enough. I think it formed like my songwriting, like a lot of the guitar stuff. Like when I saw that, I was just like, I want to be in the Afghan Wigs. So that's my shit. Greg Dooley,
Good stuff.
That's my number 4. Langan, number 3.
My number 3 is Carcass's Heartwork.
Is that the debut?
No. See, they when they came out, they were so like they were almost like grindcore, and I really don't like grindcore. It's ridiculous.
I can't get into grindcore either.
It's really funny to read the song titles, and that's about it. But they evolved again, like Death, like evolved into a. Because they just got better at their instruments and this and that. And this album was a big leap from what they used to sound like. And the precision on it, the melody with the death metal vocals, that's what I needed to get me into that band, because it was too much before that. I've gone back and revisited it, and I like it now a little bit, but at this time in my life, I wasn't hearing it. But
certain things you just need that gateway for.
Absolutely. And this was accessible to me. It made sense to me musically, and it wasn't just noise. And it was way ahead of its time. Carcass's Heartwork. I hope you didn't have that one.
I did.
I hope I didn't take your pick.
Did you?
Yeah,
Number
Carcass.
3 also.
Oh, shit.
Nice, cool. All right, so you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing the video for Heartwork, and I was just like, what in the fuck? Like, I was like, how is this guy singing like this? It was the voice caught me first, But then hearing the the blast beats and the double bass, and then
the riffs are ridiculous.
The fact that they had I think it was Bill Steer and somebody Ammett was the other guitarist, and what I loved about the liner notes in the album was, it would be like lead Steer, lead Ammett. And I was like, holy shit, they're telling you like who the fuck is soloing on this.
Yeah.
I thought it was so fucking cool to have 2 lead guitarists in a band, and I forget how I found out that they were playing, but me and 3 friends, when we were 16 years old, we found out that they were playing in L'Amour's in Brooklyn, and we went. And I don't know how the fuck we got in, 16 years old, because you probably shouldn't have fucking got in there. And I remember that there was 10 opening bands. It seemed like there was 10 opening bands.
They were grindcore. They were done in 13 minutes.
Maybe it was only 8.
They backlined.
And I remember the band playing before them. There was a huge Heartwork poster on the stage, and I remember the singer of the band before them ripped the poster off and wiped his ass with it and threw it into the crowd.
For real?
And I was like, what the fuck, man? I'm here for that
Whoa.
band, And then Carcass came on and just fucking destroyed it. I was like, holy fuck. They were great. And then, then Swan Song. I was a big fan of Swan Song. And then they did like Wake Up and Smell the Carcass, and they broke up and went away. And the one guy joined Arch Enemy, blah, blah, blah. And then
came
they
back harder than
then they
ever,
came
man.
back,
Yeah.
and then I saw them in the city in what was that, 05 or no 07 or whatever the hell it was, and they were fucking great. So I can't say enough fucking good things about that album.
They're amazing.
That's another front to back for me.
And if you're not familiar with them either, I love that. Even though I wasn't that into the first couple albums, all their song titles. I guess one of the guys in the band,
All
his sister
medical.
was a nurse.
Yeah, it's
and they
all
took
medical.
a medical book and they just wrote these horrific like medical conditions. That
Yeah.
are ridiculous.
And the samples on the one before Heartwork are fucking brutal, man.
Yeah. Good stuff though.
You guys like death? I get it.
Honestly, I didn't get into Carcass until way later,
Yeah.
and I probably through you.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I realized that music could be that heavy, but also that melodic.
Yeah. And makes sense.
Yeah, there was melody in that was like unlike any other heavy record I'd ever heard.
Definitely.
I was a big sucker for anything heavy with melody.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be my number 1 album.
Carcass. We already did it, bro.
3-way tie.
Chris, what's your number 3?
Mine was Nirvana in Utero.
Cool.
I remember being disappointed when it first came out.
I
and
still
it
am.
took a little bit of time to really like sink in for me, but I remember feeling and reading a lot of interviews about it and just kind of understanding where his head was at, and to just kind of know like what he did to just go against the label, to like fight everyone that wanted them to make Nevermind again, and then actually be like, you know what, we're gonna go to Steve Albini, we're gonna do everything you don't want us to do, and we're gonna name the record, like I think they wanted to name it "Rape Me" at one point. Like
I think they did. Yeah.
they were arguing through they were pushing back on everything, and I just really like just hearing that record and knowing what went into it, and especially now that I've gotten older and how it's settled in, is why I couldn't put it 1, but I had to make sure it got mentioned on my list.
When I first got it, I thought Heart-Shaped Box was a shitty first single, especially in retrospect. I didn't like it.
There's better songs on there.
There's better songs on there, but I get it, as far as why it came out. And I think that's the band that they were more than the band that was Nevermind.
Sure.
So to me, it sounded like a prettier Bleach.
Mm-hmm.
It was just better produced. But there's some really good songs on there. Milk It. Milk It's great because it's noise. It's what I feel like what they were. They were an indie rock noise band on Sub Pop, that somehow got Butch Vig, and they got, they produced this record, and it just was very
hit at the right time, man.
Yeah, very structured. And then they tried a bunch of stuff like Scentless Apprentice all the way to All Apologies. They covered all the bases. Tourette's, completely fucking bizarre song, but they threw it on there. They had a lot of flavors on that. Even the song Dumb. What a great mellow,
I love that song.
The lyrics on that.
And I think I'm sorry, Steve Albini, right? He released his version. They released his version of the mix because the label sent it off to someone else. They were unhappy with the mix, and they wanted it to be more like pop sounding, and so they sent it off. So the record, the version we have, and the version that was like later released now, like on vinyl and whatnot, is you can get the original mixes of that of what that was supposed to sound like.
I didn't know that. I gotta get that. That's probably sounds amazing. Cool. It's my turn. Number 3. No,
well, I backed up Heartwork.
Right. My number 3 comes from the slums of Shaolin. Okay. It has the RZA. It has the Jizza.
It's my number 1.
It has the Old Dirty Bastard, Inspector Deck, You God, Ghostface Killer, and the Method Man. 36 Chambers, Wu-Tang Clan. I remember getting the single for the actual song Method Man, and it was like just different. It was super catchy. And you could tell Method Man was definitely the star. And then I heard Mystery of the Chess Box, and it was just, man, it was gutter.
I remember seeing the videos for like Protect Your Neck and like, what the fuck is the grimiest shit?
It was scary.
It's totally.
Yeah.
It gave me the same thrill like metal did when I was a kid. There's something dangerous about it, and I wanted.
Like when you saw King Diamond, you were like, I'm a little, so they were like the Black King Diamond.
But with like the face is blocked out and the just amped up yelling and some projects abandoned it was so New York and so gutter.
So New York, like the beats hit you like they hit you like a punk or a hardcore song.
Yeah.
And just the urgency that
it was punk.
Yeah, it was. Like when you think of what we all think punk is, it had that vibe, and it was just very very anti-establishment. Mm-hmm. Everything that they did.
I love the appeal too of the, and I'm just chiming in because it's my number 1.
Absolutely.
The different having that many guys in a hip hop group hadn't been done that had such unique deliveries.
That's another thing. There was like 8 or 9. Well, technically 9. That's crazy.
That could have just been solo guys to begin with.
Yeah,
and they were together. You God will, I guess.
And then Gravediggers actually preceded. Is that the word? They made Gravediggers first.
For real?
Yeah, they made that in like 91, and it didn't come out till after because no one wanted to put it out. But after Wu-Tang hit, I guess they were like, okay, now we could put out Gravediggers because people want everything to do.
Well,
with
RZA
Wu-Tang.
had an album out before.
Yeah,
the Genius did, right?
Yep.
That was it, pretty much.
Absolutely. The only thing I could think that rivals it is Mobb Deep's, the Infamous, as far as like just that quintessential sound.
Absolutely. But that album sounds like completely polished compared to 36 Chambers.
Yeah.
And, what I mean? Like even the production for the RZA, there'll be little parts like a beat that maybe you would think he'd chop off, but just left it. It was just
great samples.
Yeah.
And then you take like a song like Cream.
Right.
Cream is like the ultimate. I mean, I can't think of a better hip hop song. That sample, that piano riff that RZA was so good at getting. Mm-hmm. Like what a like.
It's very minimalistic, but it worked. I mean, to me, it's top 5 hip hop albums of all time.
Yeah.
Maybe even discussion for the greatest hip hop album of all time, in my opinion. But
absolutely. Yeah. All right. So that's my number 3. That's your number 1. So what's your number 2?
My number 2 is Midnight Marauders by Tribe Called Quest. Tough to follow up the Low End Theory, but they did it. I think. I mean, I'm still probably Low End Theory.
Low End Theory.
A little bit more, but it's amazing. I remember when it came out, it was a perfect time. I was in New York City a lot. Listening to that in New York City in that year, in 93, it's just the soundtrack of that city to me. It's so special. The samples are great. It's the last album of theirs that was any good, in my opinion, too. So it's like
when
the swan song.
Stir It Up hits and you hear that horn, and then it goes to a Ward tour. I mean, what a
Electric
fucking
Relaxation
record.
is ridiculous. It's one of the smoothest fucking hip hop tracks ever.
Yeah.
The Chase Part 2 is another one, but when that came out and I was in college in Binghamton, I mean, we played it like non-fucking stop.
Non-stop.
Like Beastie Boys, check your head. Kind of just stayed on. Anybody's dorm you went on, that was playing. It was playing out the windows of every dorm. It was just
had that appeal. So it was Tribe Called Quest and Beastie Boys, unless you're Parker and you probably like neither of them. He hates.
I'm
the
more of a
Beastie
crisscross
Boys.
guy myself. So
Do you like the Beastie Boys, Chris?
Yeah.
The fucking guy. He's the only guy I've ever met.
I
He's
actually didn't know that.
and my wife.
You're,
He
Two
told
people.
me.
that's why
He
they're
told me
married.
recently. You guys had that one. Who was it Dan
Turk.
Turk?
Yeah.
And I remember being like, and he was like, "Oh, I hate it all." I was
Yeah.
like, "How do you?"
Guy hates Jane's Addiction. The Beastie
And he
Boys.
probably likes them too.
I like Jane's Addiction.
There you go.
Quite a
Just
bit,
been
actually.
so yeah.
There you go.
How do you listen to Nothing Shocking and think it's terrible? It's one of the best albums ever. I mean, I'm like, I thought everyone liked the Beastie Boys.
Not even
I
for the
thought so,
drumming,
too.
Jane's Addiction? Doesn't Stephen
Yeah.
Perkins know? Nothing?
Didn't make it. Didn't make the top 5.
Top 500. So cool. Tribe Called Quest. Number, what are we, 2?
2. So I didn't realize we did the thing when we matched, but Where You Been for me, Dinosaur Jr. was
Okay.
2. Reasons why they probably, outside of REM, Dinosaur Jr. is probably my favorite band. This record, because keep in mind, right, he kicked out Lou Barlow, then he puts out Green Mind, and it's basically just Jay. And this was the record that he had a band again, because Mike Johnson joins, Murph comes back, now he's got a full band. That song Not the Same, where it's just he sings in that falsetto voice with the timpanis behind him, like it was heart-wrenching. I thought that record for him was a masterpiece.
Absolutely.
Through and through.
I think I like Green Mind more, but boy, is it fucking neck and neck on those two albums.
Green Mind's a little country twangier, but I love the songs on that.
Gone Away might be like my favorite Dinosaur Jr. song ever.
The Wagon
I love
gets me. I
that
live
song
for that
on it.
look. Like, it's just fucking, man. That's some bangers. Somebody said that he dated Uma Thurman, and all those songs are about her.
What?
Yeah,
I would love to know if that's true.
yeah,
I really would love to know.
yeah.
Wow.
I heard he liked her feet.
Get the fact checkers on that.
Yeah. To Hugo. Hugo's our fact checker. Yeah, do me a favor for Hugo and hate blast us later on a thread when I. But yeah, Dinosaur Jr. can't say enough. Definitely. And it's funny that you say REM is the other band. What's your favorite REM record? I just want to let you know if you're wrong. All right.
So for me, it's just the time era I was born in. It's Automatic for the People.
Me too. Ah, man.
But
this guy-
everybody else is going to say absolutely
That's
not.
the right
Like,
answer.
I love
You're
I love
lucky you don't have a
Murmur.
vagina.
I love Out of Time. There's records I love. I think Malamo actually posted, somebody had put up a link of the top records, and just they were completely out of order for me because I was just like,
I think I did.
it's the time era you grew up in. Like one of my favorite Cure records is Wish. and
Wish, that's
everyone hates it.
God.
That's their last great
We're-
record.
Yo,
for me.
yo, I'm on point with this guy
Yep.
right here.
He's
But
got
it
it.
is an age thing because Wish, you could, I could, A Letter to Elise.
That's my
Like,
favorite song on that
Fucking,
record.
are you out of your
That's my
mind?
favorite
Are
song
you
on that
out of your
record.
mind?
Absolutely.
Like that shit fucking hits you in the stomach.
Edge of the Deep Green Sea. There's so
Come
much
on,
good
man.
shit on
Yeah.
it.
Automatic, like Night Swimming is the best song ever
Yep.
written.
I
Night
could do
Swimming
without
for-
hearing Everybody Hurts ever again.
Whatever.
And Man
And
on
I
the
think
Moon.
that that's mostly just because of how played out
Absolutely.
it was.
And Man on the Moon. But other than that,
No, I love Man on the Moon. I love The Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight and Try Not to Breathe.
It's an incredible record.
I love the
End to end.
instrumental, the New Orleans
Yeah,
instrumental,
man, it's-
everything about it.
That record that's my shit right there. So before I even just,
But it didn't come out in '93, so we digress.
but I just wanted to,
He's right. He
I
gave
don't-
the right answer. For
I
real.
didn't- all right, good. I didn't want to correct him. That's why. Parker, what's your number 2?
Number 2, Sepultura Chaos AD.
All right.
So first thing I see is the Territory video, and I'm just like, what the fuck are these guys fucking wearing? Fucking covered in mud, friggin' have the whole Brazilian tribe behind them.
I feel like you were confused by many things when you watched it.
Yeah, a little bit, but it was just another album that brought the drums to the forefront.
Crazy
I mean,
drums.
it was the songwriting the drumming was a little bit simpler than Arise, not that much simpler.
Different.
Different, yeah, and it definitely brought more of the percussion into it. I mean, just that opening drum beat on Territory was
Yes.
insane. And then you get into Kiowas, where they have the jam session with the
Igor does not get enough respect.
Yeah, and he really should.
Yep.
He does here.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of videos on YouTube if you just type in drum Igor Cavalera drum cam, and it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I could fucking watch that shit for hours, and it's just him, behind the set playing songs. And then after that, Roots, another great album. Definitely that was kind of like the quintessential like percussion album. I call that. That's like when he fucking just went crazy and just his set was huge, on that tour. But everything from Refuse, Resist to Clench Fist, that's just it's my favorite Sepultura album.
Yeah, that's a great opener. Yeah. Once you hear that opener, you're like, okay, this record's amazing. Yeah. And then Territory comes in.
Yep.
Man, Propaganda's on there.
Yep.
Just
it's so aggressive. It's like War on a fucking track in the CT.
And they took like their they couldn't get any faster than they were on those the earlier records.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Like at that point, they did what Slayer did with South of Heaven. Like at some point, you're like, okay, now we just have to bring it down and just be heavy.
So where do you go from that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my number 2 is a record like as a songwriter, which I'm a songwriter. I'm sorry. I like writing songs. When I first heard Quicksand Slip, it blew my fucking mind. I heard Dine Alone, and I couldn't even figure out what that guitar riff was. Where you listen to certain Kirk Hammett playing or like all these like thrash dudes, like you kind of get an idea of what's going on. I was listening to this riff on Dine Alone from Quicksand, and I couldn't even get it. And then the lead kicks in with Tom Capone, and it's like just these minimal notes, but they hit at just the right point. The production on the record obviously isn't that great, and later on they all said that, especially Walter. But the songs from beginning to end just so like that cassette did not leave my player for like years. To this day I could still listen to it. Watching their reunion shows, like I think Walter Streifels is like one of the best songwriters I've ever heard. From Quicksand to Rival Schools to his solo stuff, Walk in Concert, everything that guy does is amazing. But Quicksand Slip is my number 2 at my ripe old age of 15. And then
I had Wu-Tang, but I'll just throw out there.
Throw an honorable mention you had.
Honorable mention to Dark Throne Under a Funeral Moon and Mayhem's Death Crush. It birthed a genre, an entire genre with those.
You got tickets to Mayhem.
I cannot believe Mayhem is playing in fucking Amityville.
John Scanlon from ECC
Shout
hooked it up.
Out. That is going to be interesting. Obviously the allure of the whole story and stuff is what carries them and stuff like that. And I wasn't ready to hear this music back then. Kind of got into it after the fact. And I get it. I fucking get it. But they birthed and they created an entire genre out of just, you know what I mean? Like they birthed a metal genre out of nothing. There was nothing even close to that heavy. They invented it, and I came to like it. Now Dark Throne's one of my favorite bands. So shout it out.
Preach.
Yes.
Number 1, Chris.
So yeah, again, I didn't realize that we did the matching thing,
Sure.
but mine was Afghan Wigs, Gentlemen.
Okay.
So for me,
wait, was that your number 1 or number 2?
That was my number 1.
What's your number 2?
Dinosaur Jr.
Oh,
Where
really?
you been? Yeah.
What was your number 3?
My number 3 was
No, I'm just kidding.
Nirvana.
I'm completely fucking with you. All right, yeah, Gentlemen, go ahead.
Yeah. So the song My Curse that he couldn't sing, and he had to have a female sing it, like just because it was too personal to him. Just that record is to me just the epitome of a heart-wrenching, personal, introspective record that honestly I just don't think they make records like that anymore.
It's honest and raw, and the album cover is awesome too because it's these like two kids, but it's a female and a male, and it's weird because it's 2 kids and they're kind of like in this relationship.
Yeah, it's very
but yeah, what a fucking record.
I became obsessed with the fact that he reused lyrics in a pattern from one of the songs. So
Yes!
the very first song,
Absolutely.
and then he redoes it again for Fountain and Fairfax, and I became like obsessed with all these little pieces and intricacies of that record. And it's got this like Memphis feel to it at times. Like they were
guitars.
Oh, it's just like
it's
it's an unreal record that
melody.
still to this day is probably like would be a desert island disc for me. Like I can never get tired of it.
It's a top 10 album for me for sure. What did you think of Black Love, the record after?
So by the time Black Love had come out, I think I had started, as we talked about earlier, like I was already so getting into hardcore, and I was kind of pushing away so much of that genre that I never really gave it a full listen, and probably still haven't.
You have to.
But I'm a huge fan of like Up In It.
You what the ones that came?
The ones before.
The ones before Congregation.
I'm a huge fan of. I have listened to. We used to listen to it at the piercing studio I worked at, and I know the songs, but I never really fully, deeply put myself in that record.
You have to listen to Black Love one day. Well, I mean, 10 years from now, but you have access to it. It's fucking fantastic. It's just as good as Gentlemen. That's their 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
Can't recommend it more.
And speaking of a band, though, have you listened to their new? I've not checked out their newest records.
Love them.
It's good.
Yeah,
I haven't. Like they've been just completely off my radar. Like I say, I sit down to Spotify. What am I going to listen to? For some unknown reason, they never pop in my head.
I got interested in him in Dooley again when he teamed up with Lanigan. That kind of put him back on a
Twilight.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Twilight. It was the
Gutter
Twins.
Twins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because those are two of my favorite voices together.
Yeah,
and they
he's
work
great.
together.
And
Lanigan's
I was
awesome.
like, man, I got to listen to Afghan Wigs again.
And
The,
I love that people call you Lanigan.
There's
I'll take it.
there's a record that Dooley produced by a band called Throneberry that is fantastic from that time era also. And he sings on like one or two of the tracks.
Nice.
From 93?
Might have been more like it might have been 92, 93.
Okay.
Have to look it
All
up.
right.
Cool.
Well, here we go. What could this number one
I got a
be?
couple honorable mentions first. Got to build it a little bit.
Shaq?
We got Life of Agony, River Runs Red,
Of course.
That came out in that year?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Typo Negative, Bloody Kisses,
Yep.
Tool Undertow, Primus Pork Soda, Entombed Wolverine Blues, and Morbid Angel Covenant.
Morbid Angel came up a lot too
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What that record is the one, that's like the one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
So number one,
Yes.
Is it the WWF record?
I'll give you a hint. It's a band that I've never seen live. It is Metallica Live Shit Binge and Purge.
Okay, that's not even an album, though.
Like I said, it's got nothing to do with the music. It's got nothing to do with the drumming. It's got to do with the collection,
That's
display
the box
value.
set?
Yeah, it's right over there.
Okay. Why
Yeah.
not? Listen.
It
So
is.
comes with 3 VHS tapes. Thank God I got 5 VHS, VCRs ready to go.
I was working at the records. I would have stole that shit probably, but it was too big.
Best part about
looking
the
at
whole
it.
thing is just the Injustice for All tour. I was obviously too young to go to that, and that's worth it right there for the box set.
You were too young to go to it then, but what happened the next?
Yeah, that's true. What happened the
What
next
about the
20
next-
years after that?
He was waiting for the Metallica reunion.
That's
to
it.
happen.
Let's do it.
Bring back Cliff.
Waiting for Newstead. 2 days ago was the actually Cliff Burton Day.
Yeah.
He was waiting for Echo Brain to open.
Nice. Oof.
Okay, so I'm going to do my number one because I guess I'm the last one. So my life at 15 revolved around one band, and I think, if I think about it, Kirk Hammett made me wish I could play the guitar. Greg Ginn from Black Flag kind of made me realize that I can make noise. And Billy Corrigan made me, he just made me want to write songs. They had the heaviest guitars.
Yeah.
With the I heard Cherub Rock and I was like, what the
That
fuck?
song's so good.
Siamese Dream is like fucking amazing.
Flawless.
Sonically.
Mayonnaise.
Sonically.
It's fucking flawless.
Fucking Mayonnaise, Geek USA, fucking like just Rocket, Hummer. Like, I can't the shittiest song is probably Disarm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, that got played a lot, but that song hit you
That's
in
what
the
I'm
feels
saying.
when it came
yeah,
out, man.
Exactly.
I don't know.
That record's just amazing. And when we were younger, we used to take fucking ecstasy, the one with the heroin in it, because it was the good kind.
Hell no.
Listen,
You
19.
guys ruined that shit stepping on it.
19.
I mean, Swedish Fish.
I'm 19 years. I'm 19 years sober. I can't reminisce a little bit here, but yeah, that record, like, and we would seek the acoustic versions. We would buy the Euphoria, so I had the VHS tape, and then we would find these like bootlegs of like, it's like, holy shit, we found acoustic Mayonnaise. Oh my god! Like, I played Mayonnaise and Today at my friend's wedding, and it was like the best fucking shit ever. They asked my band, like, they had bands play, and they wanted Mayonnaise to be their wedding song. What a fucking treat!
I hated on that record when it came out.
Did you?
I was a huge fan of Gish,
Right.
and I was a huge fan of the Lull EP.
Okay.
Sure.
And that record just sounded too commercial to me. But now, going back, sonically, it's just, there's nothing like it. Just those layers of guitars that they have that, like, Yeehaw was churning out at that time. But I hated that record until, like, maybe 7 years ago, where I just rediscovered it and, like, fell in love with it.
Wow. That's
Didn't
crazy.
even buy it. Wouldn't even buy it.
Wow.
I was hating on it that much.
I get it. Like,
Well, you probably see it now. Like, that was the logical step for them to take as a band and puff out the sound a little bit and this and that.
But Gish is such a different record.
Great record.
It's just like this psychedelic, like, soloing fucking, like,
Rhinoceros, still one of my favorites.
Yeah, it's just like a fucking amazing rock record. And yeah, I mean, it just, Siamese Dream was a complete left turn.
It definitely was.
But sonically, I didn't even give a shit. It was just the actual songs, those melodies, those choruses.
Right.
Like,
I mean, it's a big record.
Fuck
That's
yeah.
the one thing. It's got so much space on the like in your headphones. Like, it's just, but yet it's heavy and tight. It's so hard to explain.
Sure.
But for me, it's like the Lull EP came out, and I felt like, you had By June on it, right? And I just thought, like, that's the progression they were going to make, right? They were going to have maybe Darcy start to take a little bit more into the forefront, and she kind of stepped back on that record a little bit. It just was a record I hated on for a long time until I finally sat down and gave it a hard listen.
What did you think of the double album after?
Didn't even buy it.
Wow.
I don't think I've ever even listened to it all the way through.
Jesus
There's
Christ.
some good shit. Like 1979. That's beautiful, man.
I
You
love
didn't
that song.
mistakenly
Like, meaning,
walk into the supermarket and
Bodies.
hear anyone.
no,
Love
like there's
Bodies.
definitely like songs that I can pick up here and there, but it was mostly the songs that were on the radio. And I'm sure I have friends that like
Despite
played
of
it.
your rage, you're
But-
still just a
Yeah.
rat in a cage.
Worst song on
There was an EP
Yeah.
that I wish I could have put on though, but Best Kissers in the World EP that came out that year in '93 was fantastic.
Oh yeah,
And it's out of print. You can't find it anywhere. It's not on the internet. It's not on YouTube. There's
Wow.
one song, and that's it.
all right. Well, Smashing Pumpkins, yada yada. It's fantastic. Siamese Dream. If you haven't heard it, you might want to pick it up. Travel back to 1993.
Living under a rock.
But yeah, going back to the blasphemy that we were just talking about, I think Chris should go and listen to some Replacements records. There's a lot of things from back then.
He hates Paul Westerberg. We
Wow.
learned.
I just think those songs broke up the flow of the single soundtrack. That and the
wouldn't
Love
argue with you.
Mongers were a little bit of a weird placement.
The Hendrix, that's a great song, but
It was a good
odd
song.
being
It
added there.
was. It worked a little bit, but I think that those three popped out a little oddly on that soundtrack.
Right.
All right, well, that's it. I guess this is episode 27.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, you're listening. Okay? You're listening to it on either SoundCloud, iTunes, or just on the Google bar there, because I'm lazy, personally. I don't know about you guys. You guys could do stuff too if you want, but me personally, I think those three platforms are enough. If you can't find it there, you can go fuck yourselves.
Yeah, come on.
But if you haven't subscribed to the show and you like the show, please do so on iTunes, SoundCloud. Leave a review because supposedly that means something. I don't know what that means, but
That's what I'm told.
yeah.
That's what the kids tell me.
And it's cool, like I still get texts from people that have discovered the show and they start listening to it, and it's, I don't know, it's nice, I guess. Like, you're just listening to us babble and bring what we do on that podcast group to life.
Yeah.
So I kind of dig
It
that.
makes me happy if I hear people listening, enjoying.
Yeah.
It's nice. Yep. Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you. And this
Thanks for
episode,
making me feel nice.
this episode's gonna come out right before the Sky Came Falling reunion show. So if you're listening to this, go to the show probably tomorrow.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying? You
Right.
understand?
Oh, I see what you did.
See what I'm saying?
That's how they do it in the business.
Yeah.
Right?
Cool. I'm gonna go watch Bill Maher or go to the Slayer show. I'm not really too sure. So one of the two. And then next week, next episode.
Why not both?
Next episode, I'll talk about my the time that I ate shrooms and went to the hospital that I said I was gonna say on the next show.
Yes. I want to hear that.
I'll save it for the next. Okay, cool. Thank you for doing this, Chris. Thank you for coming in from far away.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks for coming to your drummer's house.
Yes.
It's my pleasure.
You guys practicing after this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Boom.
All right.
We got everybody. Yeah, we got a band right here.
Yeah.